And we are live. I'm going to refresh my video to make sure we've got good sound. I don't like the new orientation YouTube is doing. It's weird. I'm like, this is too much. I want the chat in the middle. In the middle. Oh, man. Well, if I can even get it to play, what is going on here? Okay, there we go. Our sound is good. We're good to go.
Awesome.
All right. And Courtney, whenever you see we're live, you just pop on in.
Courtney, the time is ticking.
Yes, Grace is going to be joining us too. She got stuck at work. That she was like the original co-host, so of course she'll be here at some point. We just don't know when that will be. But today is kind of our chaotic version of I Read Dead People because it is our 6-year anniversary. Not 6 years. 6-month anniversary. All right. So we've got a Mad Lib to do. We have some memes to react to. We've got some Q&As. And we're all going to be talking about different classics books. So the main one that was for this month, the original book, was 100 Years of Solitude, which I know, Flo, you're in the middle of reading. And then Grace, it was a reread for her. I DNF'd at like an hour into the audiobook. And then so I read Persuasion by Jane Austen, and then Nell,
I read The Blacker the Berry.
and then Flo.
Me, I'm still in the middle of 100 Years.
Gotcha. I didn't know if you were going to talk about another classic too.
No.
Gotcha. And then Nicole.
I've read several in the last month, but I'm going to talk about Eugenie Grandin by that person there because I can't speak French. So yeah.
And we've got a Q&A as well, which of course y'all can comment on in the comment section as well, and I'll highlight whatever those responses are. So what do y'all want to start with first?
It doesn't matter to me.
Okay. I guess we can get some Mad Lib stuff. For some of these, I'll have the audience do it, and then for some of them, I'll have us do. So for the audience, I need to get a number, a noun, which is like a person, place, or thing, an adjective, so that would be like a color or some kind of description word, a insulting name. So y'all can start with those in the audience, and then we'll start with some of these other ones. So Nell, give me an occupation. You can think.
Pilot.
Pilot, okay. And let's see here. Oh, we got another occupation. What do you got, Nicole?
Tugboat driver.
Love it. And oh my gosh, we have another occupation. And it says plural. I'm gonna go with zookeepers. Because that's what I kept thinking of when I got to y'all's. And then do you have a famous movie quote, Flo?
Who turned the damper all the way down?
What movie is that from?
A Christmas Story. Ralphie's father.
I'd be like, oh fudge. Okay, and then any of y'all have some of these I think are easy. So like famous disliked celebrity, I think we have to go with Miss Caitlyn Jenner. No. Bieber. What's the Bieber one?
Justin Bieber.
What is her name?
And then
Haley?
The Jenner one too. Yeah,
Haley
who was the
Bieber.
Jenner one? Haley Bieber? Okay,
Yeah.
so we're gonna pop them in here for the celebrities because I'm like a Haley Bieber. Jenner. Okay, and then we have do any of y'all have an adjective?
Crusty.
Oh my gosh, love it. All right, and another adjective?
I don't know.
Frumpy.
Frumpy.
Yep.
Oh, see, y'all are getting it. Y'all are getting it. All right, and there's another adjective if you've got one, Nicole.
What did you say? Frumpy
Yeah.
And
and
crusty.
crusty. Oh no, I've got nothing. You go.
I'll go with jelly. That just sounds like it'll be weird, like some kind of jelly texture. Oh man. Okay, and then do you have a plural noun, Nicole?
Koalas.
Oh,
A little bit of
love
Aussie
it.
flavour in there.
And then we've got an adverb. So just if any of y'all have an adverb.
Quickly.
Okay. Okay. And then the rest were the audience people, but I'm not seeing any comments and I'm not seeing any viewers. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Rally in the house. So, Rally, do you have an insulting name for this Mad Lib? An insulting name.
Who did you ask that?
Rally, or is it Rayleigh? I kept seeing it as two L's.
Yeah, it is two
Yeah.
L's.
Well, here it has an I on the name. I thought it was two L's the whole time.
It looks like two L's to me.
It looks like two L's to me too.
Oh wait, you know what? I had like a little piece of dirt that was like right where between where you would punctuate it. Mud,
Mud butt.
mud butt. Okay.
Hmm.
And then if any of y'all have a number in the comments, a number, an adjective, an institution, or a noun. Mud butt.
Rally's not sure what she's logged into.
We're doing a Mad Lib for the 6-month anniversary. This one is called First Day. So I have no idea what it's going to be about. I cannot see any of the text. I only have the little spaces that you put stuff in. So there's no way I can like manipulate this. But just whatever you can think of that's funny. Institution, mental hospital. Okay, that works. Oh man. Okay. Adjective, yearning. Okay. Number and a noun. Do you got a noun, Nicole?
Nicole.
Okay.
And 6 is the number.
Okay. Perfect. Popsicles. Okay, I'm gonna make it a Nicole popsicle, okay?
Okay, that works.
A Nicole popsicle and a number 6. Okay, I'm gonna save it in here for now, and that way if Courtney pops on, at least she'll hear the end result. All right, so I guess let's start talking about some what do you call it? Or do y'all want to? Well, yeah, I don't want to miss too much if Courtney's just a little. So I guess do any of y'all want to go first, talking about the book that you read?
Well, considering my review is going to be a negative one, maybe we should start on something positive. Flip the negative in and then end on something positive.
Oh man. Is yours positive now?
Mostly, I guess.
Mine's probably the same way. Mine was like a 3.5 star.
Yeah.
Flo, I know you DNF'd.
What
Or
one?
no, you didn't DNF. Yours
No.
I DNF'd. You're
Yeah.
still reading it.
Yeah, mine is being narrated on the channel Michael Butler by a guy named John Lee, and I'm enjoying it. So Yeah. I was hoping to have it done, but like I said, I was sick for the past 5 days. So I'm kind of halfway through it.
It'll
But
be
I'm
fun
not worried about
and
spoilers or anything like that. If
gotcha.
anybody's, read it and is going to say something, because I'll still read it. I like it.
Gotcha. Then we can just wait to talk about that when Grace gets here.
Yeah.
And it'll be the same thing for me. I don't care if I get spoiled because I DNF'd it. But I'm interested in why y'all like it because she's already read it before and she loves it.
Yeah.
But I could not.
I just
But
feel like it has I don't know, I don't know, an easier, when times are easier, or well, not with like the whippings and stuff like that, or how the women were treated and stuff like that, but I just feel like it's not like a Bible study, but you know what I mean? Like when you were younger and you were told fables like that. So I just feel like it's a fable, and I'm enjoying it. Sometimes I need to get away from everything else and just pretend like I'm a child again and read something more, childlike.
I was reading it as it was trying to be realistic and I couldn't picture what they were describing or the things that they were describing. I was just like, this is weird. Like the kids with the tail of a pig and
The man snake, yeah.
I was like, nope, I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
out. So Courtney said she will be here in a minute. Work ran late, so she'll be here soon. Okay. So I guess I can start talking about persuasion and then we can just go in the order of the screen. So I liked Persuasion. I read a couple pages physically and then I was like, I need the audiobook because it was just taking me a long time and I wasn't familiar with the story like I was with the other Jane Austen book, Pride and Prejudice. So there was a lot of characters and there was also moving from place to place and I was like, I don't really know what's happening here. But so I started listening to the audiobook and then once I got about halfway through, I was like, all right, now that I kind of have a sense of what's going on, I'm also going to watch part of the movie. So I watched the movie up until the part that I had read, and then I read the rest of the book and then watched the rest of the movie, and that really helped. And I don't get all the criticism against the movie. I get that there was the breaking the fourth wall and that kind of making it more modern, but it helped me understand the book a lot more and I got to see the characters better having the movie and reading the story than if I had just read the story. So it's basically about this wealthy family who is down on their luck, but this guy is very vain. So he's like, I don't want to get a smaller house. I don't want to do any of that. I don't want my neighbors to know that I'm losing my wealth. So his friends are like, okay, take your family and go to Bath. So he takes them and moves to Bath where it's more affordable. And then he is basically renting out his mansion to this naval admiral. And the admiral's like nephew, I think, he had been there before in town and him and the main girl had fallen for each other. But then the family friend talked her out of marrying this guy because he didn't have money and he didn't have a title. So she was persuaded out of marrying him. So here we are 8 years later, and he's back in town. Did not go to Bath. She went to go take care of her sister, who's already married, over in this other place. And guess who winds up coming to visit over there? Wentworth, the guy that she was in love with 8 years ago. And the sister that she went to go visit, she's kind of like a narcissist, but also a what do you call it when you're like afraid of everything, but it's not real?
Hypochondriac.
A what?
A hypochondriac.
Yeah, she's like a hypochondriac too. So she takes everything like she's just dying if she gets a cold, and she thinks everyone in the world is against her.
Very dramatic.
She's very dramatic, and the movie really brought that out. And I was like, okay, I understand what's happening here. And there's moments like where she wants to go somewhere with the husband, And it's like, okay, her sister's in town. It would be nice for the sister to get to go out on this event. But this girl's like, I don't want to stay home with the child. Why should I have to stay home with the child? Because like the child just like broke his leg or something. Like he's injured. And she's like, but he can't ruin my day.
Is it
And
her child?
yeah, it's her child. So she's like complaining. And then, of course, Anne is just like, you know what? I'll stay home with the kid. You go to the party or whatever. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. And then this woman, her husband has two sisters that live in the house. Well, one of the sisters at first is encouraging Anne to like go for it with Wentworth because she knows that there's some sort of history there. But Anne doesn't do it because she's still kind of prideful. But she's still madly in love with this dude too. So then the girl is like, well, you haven't made a move and he's been talking to me. So I guess I'm just going to start going after him now.
Very cutthroat in the Victorian era.
Oh my goodness. Do y'all mind if I get into spoilers? Because I can get into some spoilers. Okay.
I've actually read it. That's why I'm laughing. I know that she's
awesome.
a drama.
So you can
Yeah.
comment on some of this stuff too. So this
It's been
girl
a while, but yeah, I have read it.
yeah, this girl that's like trying to make an impression on Wentworth or whatever, she's like, and I used to do this with my husband. This is the funny part. Like the falling exercise, like I'd just be standing somewhere like, so we met in high school, but it'd be like the cafeteria line. And I would just be like, no, I would just let myself fall back and see if he would catch me. And he always did. But this girl takes it to a new level. So they're like on this walled, like cliffside or whatever, like where you view over into the ocean. And so she's walking on top of this wall and he's down below like 10 freaking feet. All right. And you really see this in the movie and you're like, oh my gosh, like I understand now why she got injured so bad. Because I was like, what is happening? So she's like, I know you'll catch me. And he's like, no, this is too dangerous. And he's like literally saying like, do not do this. And she flings herself off the wall and like falls flat on her face. And she's like not breathing, but she's not bleeding either. And they're like, what the hell is happening here? Like, can you imagine Mary, that sister's reaction, the hypochondriac? I'm just like, she's dying. She's dying.
Mary was very, very, very dramatic. Anytime she was in the scenes, and it was always drama. She's like that one friend that you have that just over exaggerates everything.
So then they're like, okay, now we need to go tell the family that this woman has been injured. And so then Mary's like I shouldn't, which either she was like, I shouldn't go, or you should say, I can't really remember which way it is, but either way, they wind up parting ways again. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff, and then you get to the ending. So I won't spoil the ending, but you know it's Jane Austen. It's a romance. There's going to be a happy ever after. But I kind of got you to like the climactic moment. Girl flinging herself off the side.
She just pitches herself off at him. So do you like Austen as an author?
I do, but I will say that I'm not satisfied with the endings. The endings are
I'm not an Austen fan.
They're abrupt, and I don't get the emotions that I want. It kind of has that whole insta love aspect, but without ever seeing the reasons why the people like each other. And I get that this was way back then, and so you're not getting to meet a lot of people that are not related to you.
Yeah.
Which is also why there's a cousin that comes up in this Jane Austen book too.
Them cousins. Just the cousins need to just stay away.
Oh my goodness. And he's already like the heir to the family's wealth and everything. And then he's still wanting to come and try to get married to one of them. And I'm just like, why? Like,
Well,
this is your cousin.
In English law, up to a certain point, I couldn't tell you what year that it changed. But in English law, now, correct me if I'm wrong, Austen's books were written in the 1811 to 1818, I think.
Maybe something around that. I know Mary Shelley's was 1811, but I don't remember when when Jane Austen's was.
Yeah, because I think that Jane Austen, I'm pretty sure she's around that time. So at that time, England had a law that women couldn't inherit. So that's why Jane Austen stuff is heavily centered about the woman getting married, marrying well, and all that sort of stuff, because as you know, you couldn't work, you couldn't do anything, but they actually had laws that stopped women from inheriting. And so that's like Downton Abbey, if you've ever watched any of that. The whole premise of that is the eldest daughter was trying to get married off because a cousin that they didn't even know was coming in to inherit the land and the abbey. So that is why those characters were brought in. He was a distant cousin. I don't think he was a first cousin or whatever, but that was because of those laws. And they were in place up until, I believe, the 1900s, early 1900s. So that's why in a lot of these classics, it is centered around the women, especially Jane Austen. It's all about the marriage and marrying well and all that sort of stuff. Whereas the Bronte sisters have the same themes. They're a little bit later in time, but the women are more independent in forging a life for themselves independently of marriage. But
yeah.
So if the women get married, that means they get to keep their inheritance and what it goes to whoever they marry.
Yeah, so like they might have a dowry or whatever, or their family will give them money that they can go into the marriage with, but it essentially is their money, but it goes to the husband. So the husband controls all the finances. And the more of the classics you'll read, the more you'll see that theme will come through. And like it took me a long time to wrap, as a modern reader reading classics, it took me a long time because I'm like, no, I don't think so. So you have to sort of take a step back to really truly understand why these women are acting the way they are in the books and why they're written that way. And it all comes down to that law on that, because even land, they couldn't inherit land. They could have money, but it goes to the husband and he controls it. So if you get a douchebag of a husband that's a gambler or anything like that, which is
financial ruin.
yeah, it's financial ruin, and which that topic is actually covered in The Tenet of Wadfell Hall, which you are all reading next month, which I'll probably reread with you anyway, because it was actually a really good book. I really enjoyed it. So that's where the contents of the marriage and the comes from, which I can't stand.
I think too, just with having so little context with like other people that aren't related to you, your options are so limited. It's kind of like, is this person not going to be a woman beater? Score! And that's like the only criteria. It's like, don't abuse me and I'll marry you. And I'm just like, oh my goodness.
And another theme through those books is they didn't want the money to go out of the family, so that's why they bring family members in. And then the laws changed where you couldn't, in England, where you couldn't marry your first cousin. You could only marry your second cousin. And that's pretty much global now. And that came about because of the deformities that were happening within the royal family. That if you go back through time, you can see that they've got problems with their teeth and head shape and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, don't be sleeping with your cousin.
If you know, you know. If you don't know, I have sympathy with that. You didn't grow up, you didn't have any family bond, whatever. But if you knew from the onset and you're like, oh, cousin, come here.
Well, as Rally's just brought up a really good point there, the husband could take everything and put you out in the street and you had no recourse.
And same thing with sons too, didn't they? Because then if it went to the son and the dad had died, he was in control of like his mother and his sister's finances too, because he was the head of the house.
Yes. So the boys always become the head of the house. And that just came down to the law. And that was basically to keep the common people out of the aristocrat circle, because the gentry and everything of England, which you all bailed on, which was probably a really good move. Unfortunately, my country didn't. So basically that all of it was just to keep everything in the family. The men could only inherit. And there were cases where women who married into well-to-do families The husband, as Riley's saying, took everything, took the kids, took the lot, turfed them out in the street, and they were destitute. So they ended up in places called poorhouses, which is like modern day social security. But they had to work, and they were not great places. If you went to the poorhouse, you more than likely were going to die from tuberculosis or something along those lines, something quite horrid and horrific. So that's the historical part behind it. And so when you read these books, there is an inherent, you already have the knowledge of how the inner workings of society, because they're written back then for people back then, not, they weren't to know that 200 years later we were still going to be reading these books and trying to decipher what they were writing and all that sort of stuff. So it's sort of, yeah, that's why it can get a little bit, what the heck is going on? And yeah. Hey, Courtney.
Now we're all
Sorry I'm late. Just
you're fine.
don't even ask. It's been a day.
Oh, man.
Where's your note?
Yeah, that's true.
We do have some comments. Can you imagine if your hubby had just let you fall in that trust decision? Yeah, many men will make fun of how dramatic women in Austen's books are, but they could not understand how hurtful and desperate being in some women's situations would be. They could have everything taken away. Yeah.
Oh.
The other thing is that there was I think there was 2 widowed women in here, and one of them was like they were wanting to marry her to, I guess, to get her wealth. So when your husband dies, then are you allowed to have the money, or no? But because it would go to the next heir.
It'd go to the next heir, and that and that, like, I know, like, we're talking fiction here, so I know that a lot of people have watched Downton Abbey, and that's why that cousin was brought in, and there was such a kerfuffle about it, because they didn't know him. They just knew that this cousin was like a distant cousin, and he could come in, and the father of the daughter was worried that he would come in and just basically turf them all out. And see, she ended up having, in that story, as soon as she had a son, the money then all went to the son, not even her. But she could help because he was a child and he had died. Then basically she could help, but the father was still involved in it. Yeah, so it just, they were just some really trash laws. So yeah.
The movie Iron Jawed Angels showed some of how it was. One of the women decided not to be with men to be able to fight for women's rights.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess we will move on to the next book of discussion, which is going to be Nell.
So I read The Black of the Berry by Wallace Thurman, I think is the author's name. And I just finished it earlier today. It was very interesting. The whole book is basically about colorism within the Black community, which I thought was really interesting. I had never read a book that discusses that. It's one of those things that, like, as a Black person, you grow up with and just because you're in it. But to read about it was very interesting and kind of like almost like very meta to read about that. And also what I thought was really interesting about this was that this book was written in 1929. And there were moments where I would be reading and I would forget that this book was written that long ago, because there are things that happen in this book that just feel so like relevant to today, that it's like, wow, like this was happening 100 years ago. Like this has been going on for forever, even though it feels like I'm reading a book. Like I honestly would forget. I'm like, oh yeah, this book was written in the 20s. Like, wow, that's crazy. This has been going on since then. Like that's wild. But basically,
this still ain't got their act together yet.
Huh?
So you're like, people still ain't got their act
right.
together.
I'm like, this is crazy, because I maybe it's just like a millennial thing or a modern age thing, but it's like sometimes I feel like we think that things are very unique to us, and it's like sometimes you have to take a step back and be like, this isn't unique. This has been going on for quite some time. Just because you have recently become hip to it doesn't make it new. It's just new to you. So that it was just like one of those like I said, very meta, very like wake up call kind of moment. But basically, this girl, she is born into a family that is mostly mixed and light-skinned family members, but she's dark-skinned. And so she has grown up being made to feel less than, and her grandparents and her parents and stuff all have like, this way and these mottos and stuff where it's like, oh, you don't want to marry anybody dark skinned because you don't want to have any dark skinned babies. And, it's a shame that you came out dark. And if you're a boy and you're dark, it's fine. But you can't be a girl and be dark because you'll never get married. Nobody will.
Oh my goodness.
That was
Sure, on the family front.
That was her upbringing. So when she got to graduation, I think the book opens with her being like on the stage graduating high school. And because of the area that she grew up in and the family that she grew up in, she went to, I guess it was technically an integrated high school, but I think she was the only Black person in her class. So she was surrounded by, a bunch of white people. I think she might have been like sitting somewhere in the middle. So she felt really awkward and uncomfortable having all these people look at her and being like the sore thumb in the crowd. And so she talks about that. And
even in the 90s, I remember until high school, there was a couple of people that had moved into the community, but most of them did not stay. And so there was like 3 of them and they were all related.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that was in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what in the world?
Yep. But she ends up going to UCLA, and she has this idea that like California is going to be like more open-minded. Because I think originally she was from Iowa. I think she was from Boise, if I'm not mistaken. So that's where she grew up. So she's like, we're going to go to California. We're going to go to LA. Things are going to be, more open-minded, more free. And she goes to UCLA, and she spends all this time trying to, her parents, or like not her parents, because her dad wasn't really in her life, but like her mom, her grandparents and stuff, instilled this idea in her that she needed to be around the right kind of people. So regardless, obviously they would be either white or light skinned, but outside of that, there's like a certain like, air about them, or a certain level of like culture or whatever that like you want to surround yourself with. You basically don't want to be around a bunch of ratchets, is basically what they were trying to say. And so she spends all this time her freshman year like trying to make friends and trying to find other Black people on the campus that have a certain level of class that she comes from, but that also she can relate to based on their skin color. And she does not find success there, and she ends up, that's Courtney, what I was talking about yesterday about the whole AKA thing. She was trying to join like a sorority, and the sorority didn't want her because she was too dark, and it just yeah, that's basically what it came down to. They wouldn't even like let her pledge. They were like, yeah, no thanks.
And what year was this book?
Huh?
What year was this supposed to
29.
be? 29.
Mm-hmm. And is this the title, Blacker the Berry?
The Black of the Berry, yeah.
Okay, I gotta write that sucker down.
Yeah.
Who's the
Black
author?
of the Berry, the sweet
Wallace Thurman. I'm trying to think. So after the whole UCLA thing, that doesn't go well. She goes back home for a little while, and she meets a guy, and then that doesn't go well because the guy, he's a guy, so they get what they want, and then they dip out, and it's kind of reinforced in her mind. I don't think that he ever said this, but it was kind of like subconsciously reinforced in her mind that like the reason why he treated her the way he treated her was because she was dark skinned. So then she ends up moving to New York. She moves to Harlem and tries to start a life there. And that doesn't go well either. She ends up running into the same problems over and over again. And like I said, there's a lot of really good commentary. There's one section where she goes to this guy's house and he has friends over. And they really talk about like the reason why colorism even exists within the Black community. And I thought that whole conversation, that was probably my favorite part of the book, was where they really broke down like the reason why this exists, like what the root of the, where this came from. And I thought that was amazing. And then ultimately, I mean, essentially the answer is slavery. But I can try to pull the passage up because
I thought they were going to say something different. Okay.
No. It's essentially slavery. Like that's the root of it, but it's an extension of the racism that stemmed from slavery, basically. Yeah. But then by the end, she finally gets it in her mind. Like after all the stuff she goes through so much stuff. But after all the stuff she goes through, she finally realizes that she has to accept herself for who she is and love herself. And not be so worried about, because she was like bleaching her skin and doing all kinds of like unsafe stuff. She was eating, what do they call it? Arsenic wafers or something like that. Trying to like, she was doing all kinds of crazy stuff, trying to like change her skin color. Very unsafe stuff. So finally, by the end, she realizes that she just needs to accept who she is and love who she is, and worry about trying to be successful and, you know, being a good person and all that, and not be so worried about like the superficial, the aesthetics of what you look like and stuff like that. And so that's how it ended. But what I thought was interesting about the ending is that it ended in a similar fashion to how Passing ended. Because like when Passing ended, not like nobody fell out of a window or anything, nobody died. But at the end of Passing, if you remember, it just kind of like ended. And there wasn't like a real ending. It was just like burnt, and it's like, wait, is that the end? That's kind of how this book ended. It was like, wait, I'm like, is there more? Like, is there a part 2? Like, did I miss something? Am I missing pages?
Nice. It's not a master.
I didn't want to interrupt Nell, but I'm like, hold up, I'm gonna forget. Let me write.
I didn't wish she was. I thought she was like working out.
Solved.
But yeah, it just ended very abruptly. So I don't know. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm like I didn't love it, because I didn't like that we didn't get like a full conclusion. If that makes sense. Yeah, that was kind of like throwing me off a little bit. But other than that, I think that if you are interested in learning more about the whole concept of colorism, that is a really good like place to start.
I read a book. I think it was at the beginning of last year, or maybe the middle of last year. It was from a Jamaican author. I'm just trying to think of her name. But it touched on colorism. So I think that I'd prefer, and it was a YA book, and it only touched on it slightly, like it didn't go into depth. This sounds like it goes in a little bit more depth. So I'm thinking that I want to pick it up, because I found that very interesting that there was that. I never thought for one moment that there was that situation within your community.
Mm-hmm.
and what it stemmed from or anything. But this sounds like this book sounds like it's giving you that background. And is there further reading that came with that book as well?
I wish there was.
Okay.
I wish there was. And it's a pretty short book. I think it's like somewhere between, what did they say yesterday? Like 160 pages. I read it on my phone. So on my phone, it's 230 pages. So it's got to be pretty short as like a paperback or whatever. But it was very, very interesting. And it's also, it's good that you mentioned that the person that wrote the book you were talking about was Jamaican, because they like kind of touch on that, because there's also not colorism. I don't think that's the right word, but there is some type of prejudice or bias when it comes to that as well. So just because you could be light skinned, but if you're from the islands somewhere, you're not going to be accepted in the same way that you would if you were American. So it's not just colorism based on like literally the color of your skin. There's also this like weird unspoken divide amongst like people from the Caribbean versus people from the US.
Yeah. I had a roommate one time and I thought she was black. And she's like, I'm not black. Like she was very defensive about it. And yeah.
It almost puts you in a different category because you're embracing a different history, because you may have a different history. It's the same thing when you have like British blacks. Like I saw this thing that was talking about how there's this big thing of getting like Black British men in Hollywood and how they play like these key characters like Martin Luther King and things like that. And people have issues because you're getting this British guy to play these leaders for, all these roles in the US, but they have a completely different history than African Americans. And so, it's
I mean, I've even seen stuff with people that like live in Africa, but then they move to America later in life, and they talk about how jarring it is, the discussions about racism, because their upbringings are so different. It is a completely different experience.
Yeah. Africans will tell you, people will be, I'll be like, oh, you're black. No, I'm Haitian. No, I'm Nigerian. Like, because some of it to me is the idea that they know their history and exactly where they come from, whereas a lot of African Americans don't know that. There's not because and it's also separating them from the history of slavery when they are from a particular area. So I think it's kind of a source of pride in a way.
Yeah, because
I was going to say that to me sounds like someone owning their heritage when they say
Mhm.
that where they're actually from.
Mhm.
You know, like it's owning their heritage, separating from the atrocities, and just I'm owning where I come from in this world.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is a bad thing, but
No, it's not a bad thing. No.
It's a thing. Same thing with like why some people don't want to be called Hispanic because that includes Spain. And there was like this big massacre thing that took place between like Spaniards and like Latinos. And so I'm just like, if you know that the place, you use the place just to be safe.
Mhm.
Oh man.
Yeah,
So
it
we
was
got
very
lots of
insightful.
comments. So I want to catch up on those real quick and then we can continue on.
Good book, y'all.
The only classic I've read recently is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That is an October pick. So if you would like to come on as a host, just go into my Discord. There's a spot that says like host volunteer and let me know and I can add you as a host because I can have 6 hosts. Like I'm one of them, so 5 other than is that a thought? Dog toy, yep. Hey Pat. I wonder if the endings are this way to leave you to your imagination. I think a lot of it too just has to do with the fact that they didn't have movies back then and books were so expensive they couldn't see the epic endings, whereas we're bombarded by them because we're constantly consuming media. So it like ups the stakes for how you're gonna do it. And not only that, but pacing as well. Because back then people would give you 100 pages easily to get into the beginning of your plot. Whereas nowadays it's like you don't get me by page 2, we're done. At least that's how it is with me.
It was just interesting, like, because this was yet another Black classic written in the same decade that kind of had the same format where it's like a shorter story. And also, this story was broken down into parts instead of chapters, which I thought was interesting. I'm just like, okay, so this must have just been like the style of the time, which is just interesting looking at like modern writing. Because for me, most of the books that I have read are books that were written in this century.
Yeah.
So it's a very different like type of writing style and like format compared to how things were written back then. And like reading the books that I read now that are written in this century, a lot of times I'll read books and I'm like, what is the point of like I for a long time did not understand the point of an epilogue. I'm like, why is there an epilogue? Why isn't it just another chapter? Like if your book has 24 chapters, why is it 24 chapters and an epilogue? Why isn't it just 25 chapters? Also, why does this even need to be here? Because to me, or from like the books that I read, a lot of epilogues are kind of like that. If you ever watch like Marvel movies, after you watch all 20 minutes of the credits, there's like that special bonus scene at the end if you stay all the way to the end. Yeah. That to me is how like the epilogue feels, where it's not really necessary, but it's kind of just like bonus content. Yeah. But reading these kind of books, it's like this book needed an epilogue. And it wouldn't have been an extra chapter because this book doesn't have chapters. So like if this kind of writing is what inspired the idea or the concept of epilogues, then I now understand what the point of them is. I just feel like authors now are not using them correctly.
Yeah. For me, an epilogue is like a bonus scene, but it takes place outside of like the core frame of the story. So like for instance, the last chapter of the story might be the couple getting together, but the epilogue might be them getting married.
Yeah.
So like there's not some big character development arc that they go through from when they get together and when they get married. But in order to give that satisfying ending of knowing that they wound up together, you give them that like extra little chapter. It's more of like a fan service to the reader, more so than like this is necessary for the story. But I will say that I have the feelings you do the same way about the prologues. I think they're used way too much. Way too much.
I think prologues have their place in fantasy novels because it sets you up for the world, but not necessarily for contemporary fiction.
It's like just have a flashback later in the book somewhere.
Yeah, like,
yeah, I agree.
I don't like it. Thrillers do this a lot. They take an actual scene from the story that happens in the climax and they make it page 1. And I'm like, but you need to hook me on page 1. Don't give me this action and then make me go back to the beginning. They're just like doing their office job. I'm just like, I know why
It's
you're
almost
doing
like the book's gone na 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 na.
exactly. I'm just like, my goodness. But that's what they do. That is exactly what they do. Oh
Okay,
man.
I have to check out for 10 minutes. So
Okay.
I've just got to go and taxi someone. So I will be back.
All right.
All right.
Hello, hello, hello.
The Black or the Berry.
I'm gonna wind up making that like an official pick for next year because just Black classics, they're not. I don't understand how stuff like what you're talking about and Iola Leroy, which was the first book published by a Black American woman, are not like super popular. I don't understand it.
I think when people don't know about it, like, in general, you got to think about the people that talk about books in the mainstream. It's generally not a Black person. And so, and in general, it's not to be rude or nothing, but as a whole, white people tend to read books by white people.
No, I agree.
You have these. Okay. Yes.
I agree 100%.
Yes, Pat.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why you didn't really see Black people on covers outside of urban fiction, like the defined urban fiction genre, because of course I had to be separate to market it. And I'm just like,
I hate when I hear that term urban fiction.
That's why I use
that's a category, but it's like break that down, But I think times have changed. You also got to look at time. Like times have changed, and it's a slow evolution in different categories, and books are one of them. But that's also part of why, like, even look at BookTube. It's a slow transition in that too, which is why it's good to have diversity. Oh, by the way, Pat, yes, that's luscious chocolate of a man. Yes. With that beautiful accent. I saw a movie of his the other day that he actually utilized the accent because you don't normally hear it.
Yeah, I've met him before.
What?
I met him before people like knew who he was.
Oh, when he was a DJ?
When he was on The Wire. People who didn't watch The Wire didn't know who he was, but The Wire was shot here in Baltimore. So one day I was at the train station and he was also at the train station. And I was like, hey, aren't you on The Wire? He was like, yeah. And we just started talking.
And he had his accent and everything. He was like, oh, no, that's not.
Yeah, he was nice.
Oh, no. Okay, I can't fake an accent right now. Y'all, I'm tired. Catch me tomorrow. I'll fake a good accent.
Oh man, but yeah, so I definitely want to put that one on there. And then if any of y'all wind up reading another one, let me know. Because I try to vary it up, but it sucks that you have to like go for lists because they're just not talked about enough. Mm-hmm. And even on list, a lot of the times it's nonfiction or poetry. I don't want nonfiction. I don't want poetry. This is a fiction book club.
I'm here with you, Heather.
Yeah, I will say this book was short and it packed a lot in a very short story. One of the things that I think I didn't care for, and this is just completely like personal opinion, was that to me it kind of felt a little repetitive. And like I said, I think that this is like a personal thing, and I also think that this could maybe even be like a cultural thing because I've lived it. Like I already know. She went through a lot of scenarios where the outcome was always like, you're being treated like this because of your color. So because there were so many different instances where this was happening, to me, it just kind of felt redundant. It's like, okay, we get it. Like, she's dark skinned. Like, we get it. Like, but I guess if you aren't part of that world, you're not part of that culture, then maybe it helps to have it reinforced multiple times for you to be able to see, like, in all these different aspects of her life, whether it's work, school, relationships, family, whatever, this is something that is very prevalent. Maybe it wouldn't feel repetitive, but to me personally, it felt a little bit repetitive because I'm like, we get it. Okay.
Give me a happy scene.
Right. I'm like, is there a resolution? Like, are we going to fix this?
Oh, man. And then I guess Nicole's gone for 10 minutes. So, Courtney, you're next.
So the book that I read, actually it's more of an audio, but it's part of a series actually. So it's called History's Greatest Speeches. And I think I'm gonna take a look at a few others, but the one that I read, the edition, I think it's 9, I think. I forgot. Anyway, but it's called History's Greatest Speeches, Black Voices. And it was basically, how many people was it? I think it was 5 speeches by, historic, famous Black people. And there was Sojourner Truth. Sorry, I'm flipping back and forth on my phone for the names because I completely forgot. I know there was Sojourner Truth, Booker T. Washington, Mary Church Terrell, Ida B. Wells, and W.E. Du Bois, and Thurgood Marshall. I guess it was more than just 5. And then you also had Nelson Mandela on it. So it was really interesting, though, because at the beginning of each speech, some were longer than others, because I'm telling you, the freaking one that Nelson Mandela did, I'm like, darn, he not done yet. They let him speak for like 40 minutes. Everybody else is like 5 or 10 or 15. But there's books on Amazon too where you can get it there. But what they did was they did like a bit of a history lesson. I can't speak. A bit of a history lesson before each. So they'll say, hey, this is, Sojourner Truth, and this is right before she, was supposed to do whatever, and this speech was said at this particular time. And I felt like I guess it was a reenactment on the audio of the different people that spoke. It was actually really, really interesting, because you get to hear the different dialects and how they spoke. But pretty much they talked about race relations and calling for activism. And you had let's see, you had Sojourner Truth questions society's role in how they subjugated Black women, where you had Mary Church Terrell. She was talking about, being Black in the nation's capital, about how it's supposed to be, what they call it, what they call like DC, like the home of the free, what do they call it, like something about how it's like the Black man's, because it has a lot of Black people there in certain areas. Like DC, from my understanding, is known as kind of like the rich Blacks, like well off. It's like the greatest concentration of like well off Black people in certain areas like Georgetown, whatever. But they were talking about how it's supposed to be the Black rich person's paradise or whatever and stuff like that. And she was just talking about, but she walks down the street, but she can't. And granted, this is, in the time period, but she was talking about how she has difficulty finding a place to even lay her head, or, they say that she can do a speech in an area, but she can't even eat in the restaurant, things like that. What else did they talk about? Ida Wells talking about like the history of lynching, W.E. Du Bois. What I thought was interesting was like you had Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. They basically they were all for uplifting Black people and stuff, but they had different ideas. Du Bois was more about activism, whereas Booker talked more about entrepreneurship and saying, hey, we're not waiting on, he said, what they say, basically don't wait for white people to not save us. I think they said something about we're not waiting on white people to lift up the situation, or lift us out of poverty and all. It's up to Black people basically that have already established themselves and excelled to come back and basically lift up everybody else and be an activist for the race. So it was just all about race relations in general. It's talking about school systems, housing, work, It was really good though. Just a bunch of speeches. That's basically what it was. A bunch of famous speeches that they're known for at different times.
It's interesting that you talked about that with the differing perspectives of the different people that were like notable figures in the movement. Mm-hmm. When I was reading Stamped, Jason Reynolds did it with this other author who had like a longer version, but he made a young adult version. And they were talking about the same thing, how even these big political figures of those time didn't necessarily have anti-racist views all the time. So like some people would be like, yeah, we need to bootstrap, we need to, let in all these people to help us with them, like we need them. And then the other ones were like, no,
Yeah.
we got this. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and they touched on some of that stuff. They were talking about like you have some people that necessarily aren't like in America in general. They were saying not everybody's necessarily against like black people because this is during the time when there was all these speeches were I think before like 1950, so definitely a lot more issues going on at the time. But they were saying that not everybody's necessarily like against and going out to get the black man. It's just that some people just, don't want you to excel above themselves, and as a whole, want to suppress. But also you have a lot of people that they're just trying to make it on their own. So they're just not checking for you, so it's up to black people as a whole to bond together and look out for themselves because you're not really expecting any other races to do that. So you're kind of basically on your own. So that's why they were talking about education and entrepreneurship and, activism and looking out for each other. Because they were talking about how, you have black families that are basically torn apart because you have like the husbands, to go find work. You can't find work because for unions, they're not allowing certain people into the unions. And then the unions would say positions are filled because they basically wanted the whites at the time to get any jobs that were higher paying. So black people were basically relegated, if the work was even there, to what was left after everybody else got positions. And they were saying that you needed to have like skilled labor, but labor unions and schools and stuff weren't allowing black people at the time to even participate in those things. So, it's the idea that you stay in poverty because systems weren't in place to allow black people to excel at the time. So they're discussing just the frustrations of that, but also some other solutions, and just saying that, black people are here, but an opportunity needs to be given in order for them to excel. But people keep saying that there's race relations and black people are in poverty and aren't excelling, but
Look at the reason.
there's nothing in place to allow them to do that, So
Yeah, they touch on that a little bit in Black of the Berry.
Say again?
So they touch on that a little bit in Black of the Berry. Once she gets to Harlem, they talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And what you were talking about people not being against, but at the same time, they don't want the success to kind of like go over a certain level. There are instances of that in the past as well, with like the Tulsa race massacre. A lot of that was there was that whole community of like black owned businesses that were thriving, and they were starting to become like these figureheads and getting political positions. And so they just went on this killing spree and like ruining all the businesses so that it would lower them. And then the other thing is you were talking about different kind of like tenants, like improving the education system and other things for the community. Same thing happened with the Black Panthers. That was one of their missions, was to improve education in the communities. They literally had the FBI had like this cohort of infiltrators that they had become Black Panthers in order to lure people away and then commit crimes under the guise of the Black Panthers to make them like illegitimate and seen as violent people. So it's like, it's crazy that every time you do see an uprising of more and more people getting that level of success, that scares the people that have always been in power. They come up with some way to try to lower it.
It's interesting that you brought up the Black Panther thing, because although I did not know that, but what you just told me does not surprise. That's not shocking. You hear the rumors and the stories, but I've never seen anything or read anything that like actually confirmed that. But it's interesting that you say that, because I used to work as a background investigator. So doing the background investigations for people who were applying for government positions to get a clearance. And one of the questions that they have to answer is whether or not they've ever been a part of, I believe, a terrorist organization. I believe that's the wording, or it's something along those lines. And Black Panther is on the list.
Really?
So it's like, if you've ever been, yes, that counts. Granted, I've never had to interview anyone that was a part of that, party. But if I did, that's something that could potentially be a strike against them in terms of trying to get a clearance.
See, and the modern version that you see of the Black Panthers is not the same as the original version. There's a big difference. It's kind of the same way they tried to paint the Black Lives Matter movement, is they would highlight certain figures and be like, it's all bad because this. But then, like, the root of the problem just was not getting the airtime. It was all of the negative stuff that was coming with it. Every time it just repeats, and it's like, oh my goodness. I remember when we were reading Owl Leroy, and I was like, oh, this is where gerrymandering came into play. I didn't know this was happening like since the very beginning. It's kind of mind-blowing. And then I was even reading a book about COVID that I was reviewing today, and it was talking about the experiments done against the Black community, and that being one of the hesitancies against getting the vaccine. Whereas for the white people that were hesitant, it was a lot of like digging into either conspiracy theories or feeling like I don't have to do anything you want me to do because I have freedom and like the privilege that comes from that. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. The more and more I learn, I'm just like, my mind is blown.
That the Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks touches on that as well about experimentation. I think this country has such it's such a negative history when it comes to dealings. Like, it all stems from slave times. I just felt like that's why when it comes to racism, I mean, in reality, I'll be honest, I don't think it's ever going to go away. It could get better, but you'll always have some sort of biasness because there's a difference amongst people. And there are people that still look down. They might not say it because everybody wants to be PC. The most boldest people say, hey, I don't like Black people. But what you do is you disguise it under different terms. It's the same thing when it comes to like sexism. People be like, oh, well, like pick somebody apart. Like, I saw a lot of that when it came to like the Clinton-Trump campaign. Now, granted, that whole election and campaign and whatever, the whole thing was a mess, both candidates. Okay, so
I agree with that.
I'm just saying, a lot of people disguise their sexism with Hillary with a lot of other stuff. Like, I'm just like, oh, just a lot of that really came out. I saw that. And the same thing with Obama when he was elected. You have all these people that historically vote Democrat, right? But all of a sudden, you just start having some issues, but you want to put it under the guise of something else. I mean, to each his own, but to me, it's just, I feel like certain groups of people are surprised when they hear about racism and when we talk about a lot of the books that we read, because, there's a lot of them that feature oppression and things like that. But, it's like, I'm not surprised at most of the stuff that I read in books. But what's really funny? There is a booktuber. Her name is Bookmark Chronicles. I think it was last week or week before last. She posted a video. I was going to share it. I think I'm going to put it on my community tab and find it. But it was talking about basically people that talk about they don't want to read books by Black authors because they can't relate to the characters. But she was saying, why don't you just say you're racist or you're biased? Because you read about dragon shifters and about
all that video.
Okay, well, I've never slept with a dragon or, flew in the sky or been a bird or whatever. But you freely read these 1,000-page books talking about this, but you're saying you can't relate to a Black character, so that's why you didn't pick up a book by a Black author. Not whole video. I'm just saying.
That whole video, I was just
amazing. It was amazing. I was just like, woo! I watched that sucker 3 times.
Saying the quiet part out loud.
Oh my goodness. I was like, it was more than that though. Like, it was so many different scenarios that
it was all, yes.
And I was like, oh my God.
She knocked that video out the park. Okay, I'm telling you.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Was she also the one that did the bookshelf thing and she put like book by POC author I'm going to talk about because the publisher gave me this copy, but I'm never going to read it. So I'll just conveniently not mention it in my wrap up. Because there was
remember.
They were making fun of things that people did.
Yeah, it's nuts. But to me, to each his own with people's reading. I'm not gonna judge it. I mean, because I read some crazy stuff, but I just, I feel some type of way about a lot of things. So it is what it is. So
I like it when someone says what no one else is saying, but everyone is thinking.
I agree. I completely agree.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we do got quite a few comments, so I do want to highlight
those. All quiet. Have you said anything this whole time?
No, I'm just listening.
We talk about some wild stuff. Okay, I tell you.
I read the Henrietta Lacks. I just read that not too long ago, but I didn't read these 3 books that you are discussing. So I thought I'll just be quiet and I'll just learn and listen.
Yeah, Henrietta Lacks, we had to read that my freshman year of college, and I honestly have no idea why. It was like the freshman orientation class. Henrietta Lacks and what she went through has nothing to do with your freshman year of college and adjusting and all that. Not related at all. But I'm assuming that maybe they picked that book because, again, Baltimore, that whole thing took place in Baltimore. So I'm assuming that maybe that's why they had us read that. It was a very strange experience, that being my first reading for college. Like, that's not
which class
what I was expecting. Huh?
Which class was that?
This was for freshman orientation. We had a freshman orientation class as like one of our classes for the first semester of school. So they're supposed to like orient you to like the school and like, time management and getting to know your advisor and trying to pick your classes, like all the freshman stuff.
You got to read a book as part of that?
Yeah, we had to read a book. And the book that we had to read was Henrietta Lacks. So very strange.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, very strange. But that was how I ended. I don't think I finished it, but I remember reading most of it and being very intrigued by the whole premise of it and what they were, using her cells for and how they were treating the family. Like all that was really crazy. But yeah.
I heard about it. I was at a spin class years ago and a lady was talking about it. It was on my list for like 10 years and I finally picked it up.
Another good Black classic is The Conjure Man Dies by Rudolph Fisher. It's the first murder mystery written by a Black author. I'll have to look that one up too.
Yeah. I heard Emma Ray talking about that.
Hey, Kiana.
Everybody in the chats. I'm sorry, I didn't say hi to everybody. Hello.
And Medical Apartheid.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
There are so many things through time do not change. It just changes the form it is in. Yeah. So it was like you were saying, you don't think racism will ever go away because even when we all eventually become brown, there's still going to be colorism.
There'll always be an issue. Oh, your hair is that's a whole nother topic there. But oh yeah, your hair is a looser curl. We can talk about that now, but it'll be a whole nother thing then. But yes, it is what it is. It just makes me sad.
The book that not the book, but the thing that you were talking about, Heather, with the Tulsa Massacre, is that the same thing that Ashley from, is that her name, Ashley? Books to Ashes? The book that she read, Blackbirds in the Sky? Yeah, I added that to my TBR. I do want to read that.
It was good. And then the one about the Black Panthers was called Revolution in Our Time. Okay. I will warn you, it's quite long. It's like 8 hours, and it does get a bit repetitive, but it's good information. So it'll be in my wrap up.
I read this book a long time ago, probably about 15 years ago. It is one of my top 10 favorite books of all time. And it is along the lines of The Darkest Child. It's by Dolores Phillips. Can you see that?
See the cover. I couldn't see it.
Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I see it.
Okay. So anyways, it is definitely along the lines of how this little girl was treated because she was the darkest sibling out of the family. If any of you haven't read it, I would highly, I couldn't put it down. It went everywhere with me until I finished it. And I probably finished it in 3 days. But it's all the way along those lines of, I never really stopped to think about that, how Like the Black community will even treat their community according to their skin color, the tones of it, I should say. I never really realized that that was a thing.
Yeah,
So
we
that,
don't have that unity within our community, and it's just it's. I feel like it's better, but I think, and this is just my opinion, I think as a community, I'll just say for African Americans and American. Granted, I don't speak for all of them. I just speak for the people that I've met, and my family, and kind of my theory is I feel like we're still kind of lost, and we're still just kind of clamored over each other just to kind of get to where we need to. And and you have a lot that people and families that systemically, like, just they haven't gotten it together as a whole. So I think if we can bond together and uplift each other as a whole, it will be better. But I think it will always be an issue, because when you have Black people tend to try to get it together and unify, you have other outside entities that don't like that, because that's the same thing about getting together in politicians. You all get together and it's like, let's get somebody in office so they can speak for us.
yeah.
You have those infiltrators. It's just like when you go to a movement and then there's always some agitator from an outside group that acts like they're part of the group, to make it seem like you're troublemakers. So you tend not to get anywhere. It's the same thing with Black Lives Matter. Like, and look at reality, right? Black Lives Matter as a movement came together with, we need something outside of us, outside of Black people, to be our figurehead, because when we speak for ourselves, we don't be taken serious. We have to have somebody else that looks like everybody else in order for us to get somewhere. Black Lives Matter as a movement did not get really any sort of traction on it until white people decided they wanted to be part of it too. And that was with George Floyd. What happened to all the other stuff before? It's not like that he was the only one. And look at prime examples. Look at Colin Kaepernick. Lost his career trying to bring light and shed light on a particular situation,
and still doesn't have
happening, and lost his career. But then later on, you want to be like, hey, fist bump. Okay, we're good. We're on your side now. Okay, yeah, okay. So I don't know. I'm just saying that just overall, I think that there's issues. We have an issue with trying to get it together, because we're still fighting amongst ourselves, because we're discontent with where we're at as a people. And so we're going to always have that until something drastic happens. But I feel like, just like when it comes to slavery, okay, we couldn't bring ourselves out of that, because you had so many oppressors. It took some outside force, somebody else, to give us out of that. And then we were just kind of left flapping in the wind, and we're still flapping in the wind. So, I mean, I don't have an answer. I just, I just try my best to do with what I have, but I recognize that there's a problem.
Yeah.
But I try not to contribute to it. As far as with the whole colorism aspect, that's not something that I try to contribute to.
You can only control your own actions.
Yeah.
I agree. And I've seen this, like, in my family, like my side of the family, like my mom, we all comes in shapes, all different colors, shapes, and sizes. In my particular family, my mom had 5 kids, and we come in the range of like really, really dark to really, really light. I'm kind of in the middle, right? But then I have my mom's sister is dark, and all of her kids were dark. And she makes comments every time we go there. And I'm like, I've never treated you or commented anything on your color. To me, you're my cousin, you're my aunt. That's it. They see something different. But sometimes you have different experiences that have shaped that. Like, just like I've been called names by like other people, maybe they were called out for their skin color. And so that makes them feel some type of way.
Yeah. It's if you don't grow up in it, then it seems like foreign and like a hard concept to understand. But when you grow up in it, sometimes you almost become numb to it, because it's just always been there. Like with me, like my parents, one of my parents is light skinned, one of my parents is dark skinned. So it's something that comes up a lot even if it's coming up as like a joke. I think that when I was younger, because it came up so much in like a joking way, that it didn't really faze me. But as I've gotten older and learned more and read more, become more educated, I've realized that those kinds of jokes aren't really funny. And there are some people that are probably actually really hurt by those kinds of things. So it's a tough thing to deal with, and I don't know that anytime soon, if ever, it will be resolved. Unfortunately, I think that we would have to get to a point where everybody is just the same color.
Yeah,
That's
and then they'll be like, "How long have you been this shade?"
But you know,
How many generations?
but that reminds me of something else that I used to let go, but I don't let it go anymore. I've gotten a lot more vocal as I've gotten older, I will say. But it's the whole idea of, you know how people will be like, "Ooh, a white and a black person make a pretty baby," right? No, don't spot. That is something I don't let go, because to me, what they're referring to without saying is the idea that there's going to be a light-skinned kid, and that's the acceptable person in life. And when everybody, if we all become this little melting pot that people think is going to be the ideal environment, which will never be, I believe, it's going to be that shade, that little light shade, you know, those little Instagram models that, you know, when people decide they want to cultural appropriate online and they like do the tan like the Kardashians and have the little bitty curly hair when they really don't look like that.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I was going to say that I think the reason why people say that is because there are dark people who want to be lighter, but then you also have white people that tan because they want to be darker. So when you have a mixed kid, you have that kid that already naturally has that skin tone that a lot of people are trying to achieve. And then they also have that curly hair that is more manageable. I'm not going to say it's pretty. I'm not going to say it's better, but it's more manageable compared to someone with like me that has like 4C spongy hair that, shrinkage is my life.
Girl, you see, I got this scarf on
exactly.
now.
This is why my hair is always like this, because if I take my real hair out, I have like nice hair, like a nice grain of hair, but it's just too much work to try to do something to it and keep it looking like something. They're doing this. I can sleep in this. I can shower in this. If I want to go to the pool, like I can do whatever I want to do with my hair in this protective style versus, someone who is mixed. They can take a shower or they can get like I was watching a TV show the other day and they had like a paint fight or something. And I remember watching it and being like, I can never have a paint fight because if I get paint in my hair, you know how hard it's going to be to get that paint? Yeah, it's going to be impossible, first of all, to get it out. And then I'm going to have to wash my hair. It's going to ruin I'm going to have to start all over again, get a whole new style done. Versus if you're, white or mixed or whatever, you could easily just wash your hair every couple of days and it's just fine and it's great. I can't do that. So it's like as a mixed person, you have a little bit more opportunity, a little more flexibility, I guess. And you have, like I said, you have that skin tone that a lot of people are trying to achieve.
That's because it's kind of like that Viola Davis was talking about that in her memoir, Finding Me. If y'all haven't read it.
Oh, I have.
Awesome book. It talks about the whole colorism aspect, but you also have just like in Hollywood, it's that universal appeal type thing, where basically it's like, is this person white or are they black? Is that type
curiosity, attraction to it.
Yeah, but then also you have that term. Oh my gosh, here's another term: exotic.
I was just about to say that.
You're just like, I had somebody, because back in the day, my mom told me just because I used to have a real round face, people would be like, "Hey, is she Asian and black?" That type thing. But then it's like, and I had even as an adult, people be like, "Are you mixed with something?" No, I'm African American. Oh, you're just black. Now you're not interested. I'm not exotic. That term exotic. Okay.
Yes.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing that we have with black females. We're not exotic enough. Or back in the day, the big bubble butt that everybody liked, the donkey butt, that was ghetto and trashy back in the day. Now it's cool because you're putting it on white women, and
because Kim Kardashian did it, so now it's cool.
So I'm just
removing it now. Now they're removing it
because they're having a lot of health issues with it.
People have gotten that surgery and been injected with concrete.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
In their butt.
That's some people that didn't have money and went to the lady at the hotel.
There have been a lot of health complications for people doing that, but people did it because Kim Kardashian did it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying it's there's just a lot of issues, I think, within the it's in the Black community, but it's as a whole. It's within the Black community, but it's also how the Black community is treated.
Yeah.
So I think we internalize that amongst ourselves, and that is also another reason why we have issues when it comes to community, you know. So we could talk on
the exotic thing is that I can definitely relate to that, because I have been mistaken for a bunch of different things. Like I remember I went to, I was say Hawaii. I went to Miami for my 21st birthday years ago. And I had like, you know, my 26 inches, like I had my hair in a weave or whatever. This is back when I still wore weaves.
Yeah, your baby is just like,
yeah, exactly. I was cute, you know, 21, turning up. But I was at this hotel and we were doing like the open bar or whatever. And it was me and my friends who were sitting at the bar, and this lady comes over, and she looked white, but it was also dark, so I couldn't really see her. And she comes over and she's talking to us about, I don't even remember what, but I remember her being like, yeah, like we got to stick together, us mixed girls. And I was like, I'm definitely not mixed, ma'am. I'm not sure what you're talking about. And then I remember, like, I've gotten Oriental. People say that I look Oriental. I get that a lot. I remember one guy told me that I look like Ashanti. I do not look like Ashanti. If y'all don't know who Ashanti is, I do not look like her. But this man told me I look like Ashanti. So yeah, I get a lot of things when I tell people like I'm just Black, and I don't even refer to myself as African American, because I have not traced my like ancestry or my heritage. Like I haven't like done like a 23andMe or whatever to really trace my roots back to Africa. And if I go back like 7 generations, all of my family is from right here on the East Coast. So I don't have any proof or evidence that I came from Africa. My people might have just been native. They might have already been here. So I don't like to claim something that I don't prove. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just Black. Like that's it.
I go between the two.
The culture, to me, like race is not necessarily your DNA makeup. It's more so how you are perceived by others. Because that's what's going to shape your own life experiences. So, I mean,
I'm gonna go to what Nell said. So you said you were mistaken for Ashanti. I would take that because I was told I look like Whoopi Goldberg. It was a guy I briefly dated said, you remind me of Whoopi Goldberg, but I think she's cute. I'm like, that is still not a compliment.
I mean, at least he thought she was cute.
I was at church with my parents, and the preacher had said that the one guy in the audience looked like Mike Tyson. And I'm like, how? This guy was like a skinny, tall guy. And I'm like, yeah, no, like not in any way. I'm like, do you see face tattoos everywhere? Like,
I don't think Mike's that bad. I mean, I'm not down with the face tattoo, and I'm not down with his voice, but Mike ain't a bad looking dude.
The guy's wife is white, and she's like, nah, my man look better.
Yeah, people need to stop with the comparisons. Unless people that we gonna take it as a compliment and just be like, no. yeah, she be getting down with what she said. That's Bookmark Chronicles, y'all.
Same thing with gay people in books. Some read just someone holding hands and say, I don't want to read about that, when gay folks have to see and watch straight relationships and sex all the time. Not only that, but the whole male thing with women reading it and being like, yeah, I'm okay with male because I'm attracted to both of these men. But then you do a female and it's like, then it's like, okay, then you're not really for LGBT books. You just want to fetishize 2 attractive men together.
Yeah, but I get everybody has a preference, and I'm all for that. As long as you don't denigrate someone else, I'm all for that. You know, because I mean, I will say, like, okay, I'm open-minded when it comes to books and all, but I mean, in reality, I am more comfortable with reading about. Truthfully, I don't know. I feel like I'm way more comfortable with reading just about straight characters. It doesn't offend me to read about queer characters. But I will say majority of my reading isn't that. And if I had to choose between like male, female, whatnot, I mean, I would choose male. But I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. Like that's not me. I'm open-minded about it. I just have preference, you know?
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just funny when people pride themselves on like being an ally
I'm
and
woke.
who read LGBT, but they don't read LGBT, they just read the G.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The woke points thing is the thing that gets on my nerves when I see certain content. I'm just like, I can tell that your intentions are not good. My goodness. Anyway, Shake's head. Expand your world, people. See other perspectives. Read what you like, but get out of your comfort zone now. Yeah, because I think sometimes there's that sense of security that you get from things that you know, and you don't really know that you wouldn't enjoy something else until you try it.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
I agree. That's how it is with memoir. Like I used to be like, oh my gosh, I don't like memoir things by celebrity. No, it depends on who it is. I learned that. Hope you understand what I'm like. That's true. That is true. I saw something on the news about that today. About it was a Black woman that wasn't taking her symptoms serious, and she almost died, and they're trying to sue.
Oh my! Very true words spoken, Courtney. It's the same in the UK. Though we have idiots like Kanye saying, "Choose to be." Oh my goodness, makes me mad. If you haven't experienced it, it's also harder. Yeah.
I'm always saying so. Oh my God.
I hate in books or movies when they try to make the solution to a racist situation or family history is to make an interracial couple get together. That annoys me. An example was in Gothic.
I just read that.
I hated that book. I'm sorry.
You hated it?
Yeah.
My best friend loved it, but she loves anything that's like Gothic fiction.
It was okay. I was like,
I had never read a Gothic fiction book before. I didn't really know what that was going into it. I really just read it because it was popular. Yeah. And I think it might have been the book club pick for my book club that month. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have read it.
I was thinking of DNF and then most of the time.
John just cast to nail. Preach on.
That was what we were talking about, Vince.
Not just the bums, it's the lips too. Oh yeah.
Yeah. The lip fillers. Yep.
I think what it comes down to is people are doing the best with what they have and what they know, but never stop learning and being open. Keep trying to do better as you would want yourself. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I leave these conversations where it's like, oh, did I speak too much as like a white person? Or did I say this because I felt like I needed to explain myself? And it's like, but at the same time, I'm like, you know, I'm trying to be me. If you need to call me out about something, call me out about something, because I'm not going to learn otherwise. And it can be uncomfortable to like put yourself out there, but it's like, you got to do it.
But you know, but some people kind of go overboard. Like I'll say this, to a certain extent, I'm about education because there's some things I don't know. Like, okay, like a good example is the term Oriental, right? I was in college. I was hanging around with this Indian girl. She was from India, right? And I used the term Oriental. And she told me Oriental is an object. Asian is the term you should use for people. I didn't know that. I was like, oh, and that still sticks with me. She was kind of rude, if you ask me, and treated me different after that. But I told her to her face, thank you for telling me that. I never, I did not know, but I still learned that. And I tell that to people all the time so that, if they say that to other people, then they won't get the same reaction I got and offend because she said it was offensive. So, and I completely understood that, but some people wallow in their ignorance and don't want to know something different, but at the same time, I feel like there's only so much I'm going to educate somebody, because I feel like when you're 40, 50, whatever, 30 years old, if you don't know not to call me colored, like, come on now. Oh yeah, like I'm not gonna educate you. I'm gonna look at you funny and I'm gonna walk away because I ain't got time for the drama.
Even with the blackface with people that are like in their 70s now, I'm like, you didn't even know that back then. Like, there's certain levels of ignorance where I just don't believe you.
Like it's like touching hair. Like there's a certain amount of respect. Like, okay, race things, fine, right? Because we all can learn. Okay, there's things I learned all the time too. But respect me as a person and don't treat me like I'm an entity. Like I'm here. Did you just come near me and to just push me over, like to get in front of me like I was not here? Like that to me is not cool. Or I'm sitting here and you're going to touch my hair. And I'm like, hold up, what are you doing? Oh, I was curious. No, we're not going to do that. And then we got an attitude, and especially as Black women, it's, oh, she got an attitude. There's a reason I have an attitude.
Yeah.
And the older I get, the more attitude that I get, because I brushed off a lot of things when I was younger because I kept the peace. I mean, I hang around a lot of white people, and stuff. And in many circles, I'm like the only Black person. I get it. It is what it is. White people love me. But I'm just saying, I have no problems. I'm all about diversity and all, but I'm not going to sit there and have you and just ignore the fact that you're being disrespectful. And I did that a lot in my youth. And I feel like I felt like I brushed things off that as a Black person, I feel like I betrayed my race by brushing things off because I shied away from an opportunity to stand up and maybe educate somebody. I don't know. But nowadays, here. I really don't.
Tell me after the fact, like, hey, you did this. I know it wasn't intentional, but this hurt me. Can you please not do this in the future? And I'll be like, yeah. I mean, me being someone that is like rejection sensitive, I'll probably cry. Because
I'm nice.
I feel bad when I make someone else feel bad. But then at the end of the day, I would prefer them to tell me and me not to continue to hurt them. And then that cause a rift in the friendship rather than we continue to do that thing. But
I think as Black people, though, that's something that we are. Well, let me not speak for all Black people, but I know, like, from where I come from, that is something that we are kind of like taught and trained to do at a young age, is brush things off, certain things, because we are in a position where we don't have all the same opportunities that people of other races have. So if you have the opportunity to be in that room, you don't want to do anything to cause any commotion, ruckus. You don't want to stir up any drama. You don't want to be seen as being difficult because you don't want to lose that spot because you were lucky to even have gotten that spot in the first place. So you want to do whatever you can to keep that spot. So there are things that, we'll look the other way or not say anything because we don't want to be looked at as being difficult. And then they're like, oh, well, y'all are a dime a dozen. We'll kick you out and get some other Black chick and put her in here.
And you've seen it happen to creators on the platform. I'm not going to say no names, but I know y'all know these people where they've been put in those situations. And I'm just like, really?
Yep. Or another thing is if you're one of the few Black people, or if you're the only Black person in the room, you feel like you're a representative of everybody. Because I've been in circles around people that have never, like, especially when I was in the military, I met people that have never seen a Black person that came up and like did this to me. And I'm like, like,
did you ever
go, or we in the shower,
did you ever go to Malta?
No,
because their Black people are basically seen as gods. Like,
why not in the USA?
It is like slightly a fetishization thing.
Like
seen as like gods because it's I guess it's rare for them to see, so they're just like, ooh.
So, I mean, you never know till you know. It's just like if you go to like Asian countries. Well, no, because
if
from India, but like Korea or something,
That's what my friend told me from China. She said that fat people in China are seen as being very wealthy. So you're almost.
That's how it was back in the day, though. I think even like England might have even been like that, like a long time ago, because if you were fat or overweight, it was a sign that you had money and you could afford a lot of food.
Yeah, I hear about that. That's like the mukbang people for Korea. They're people want to give them food because, like, So I don't know. Different places have different things, Like I remember when I was in the military in the shower, our hair is different, right? Communal showers. You have the one pole with 5 spigot heads.
Yes.
Many people looking at this. I'm like, stop looking. Don't. It's the same as you. Okay.
People. So there would be 12 on those 6 spigots. So you would have your partner they would rinse, and you would put
Yeah.
and then you switch, and then you do the other, and then you switch. We had 2 minutes.
Girl. Yep. I hated that. Oh my gosh.
I was
Horrible.
like, day one, 80 girls just getting butt naked in front of each other. You got 10 minutes to get in and out.
That was my first experiences with showering with other girls. Basic training, I hated it. I was happy when we got, like, once you went to like your job training and later on, now you have individual showers. And nowadays I don't think they do it like they used to do it with us. Everybody has their own showers, but it's the worst. And as a Black person, you know, like we're talking about with hair, I can't just sit there in the shower and wash my hair in 2 minutes and I'm done. Yeah. I would have to wait till, like, I would get up at like 3 a.m. Like when everybody else is sleeping, I would have to get up and then do my hair because it wasn't enough time for that during like the normal schedule time. And, you know, you're supposed to be in bed. So I would be like secretly going to wash my hair because you got to wash and detangle and condition. Black hair isn't quick, and military it didn't accommodate for that. So I would lose sleep just so I could do hair care.
They made us sleep and sweat one night because they had already given us our showers for the day. Mm-hmm. And then they had someone on guard in the bathroom, so you couldn't go in there and try to take a sink bath with a paper towel. But like in high school, yeah, I was the paper towel sink bath person because I was not stripping down naked in front of people and getting in them showers. Oh man. But yeah, I'm not modest anymore. I'll get naked. I don't care. I'm just like I mean, it breaks you because you get naked in front of 80 people day one, and it's like you can't be modest because everyone's getting naked. So it's like they seeing me, I'm seeing them. Okay.
Yep. That is true, girl.
Oh man, we got off topic, but anyway, let's see where we were.
How do you remember?
Not Whoopi.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the worst, y'all.
I get told I look like Tia and Tamara.
At least they're cute in my opinion.
I get the vibes. I don't think that you look like them, but I guess I get what they're trying to say.
As a white person, I had some similar experiences when I lived for a short time in Africa and India. Kids asked lots of questions and people stared and people were all touching my hair. See, I don't mind if anybody touches me. I kind of take it as a compliment, but it's a different experience.
Yeah.
Like I'll go to a salon and sometimes they will have other beauticians come over because I don't overbrush my hair. I let it air dry. I don't put any heat on it. I don't do anything. So it's like this baby fine, thick hair.
Hello. But I mean, but that's like a learning experience. I don't mind that. Like when I go to salon, hey, can I take a picture? Blah, blah, blah. But just I'm in the store and you just cut in front of me or just, you know how somebody comes near you and just pushes you over and act like you're not there and getting your spot, that type thing, you know. And I don't know if that's a cultural thing because I get that a lot. If I go to Chinatown, they just act like I'm an entity, like I'm not there. Like an old lady will just brush you over. Or
it's always an old lady
walking.
She'll just come stand in front of you. Like I'm like,
yeah, that is rude. That is
the line is over there.
Yeah, but then even in like a grocery store, you'll have like, you know, mostly it's white ladies that I'll encounter of, you know, I'm trying to get something on the aisle and you just kind of in front of me or, you know, just little things like that. I'm just saying, don't treat me like I'm an entity, like I'm not there, like I'm not somebody to be respected. So to me, that's not, you can take that as a racial thing or just take it at maybe the ladies being a bitch. I don't know. But it's the idea of respect me as a person.
I would say in the
you
U.S.
act like you are not a person.
B word.
Huh?
But I said in America, I'd say they're being the B word.
Oh, yeah.
But I know in the Middle East, they warned us. They were like, if you are the foreigner in this country, they will skip you in line. Don't say nothing. Let them do it. Like that's what they do. They're there, so they skip you. Also, don't look at the women directly in the eye. That's disrespectful, especially if you're a man.
Yeah, you gotta know the culture you're going to. Like if you're showing too much skin, like remember how you go off base when you're in another country and they're like, wear a long sleeve because the men may pinch you. Because in their culture, women don't, you know, show skin. So I get that.
Or you can wear shorts in the daytime, but when the sun sets, you have to be in pants.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah, and then I did a lot of the Gulf of Aden area. So it's like by Oman, Iraq, Iran, Yemen, all those places. Um, but the other one was don't go out with wet hair because they'll assume that you just had an affair with someone. So you showered at their place and now you're doing the walk of shame. So you don't go out with wet hair.
What's up with the
red hair is the walk of shame because in some of those cultures, the only time the women shower is after they've had intimate relations with their partner.
Wow.
Really?
I didn't know that.
Dang, I would never shower. No kidding.
Not showing the bottom of your feet.
Like, no.
Yeah, no,
Bottom
yeah,
of your feet.
if your hair is
And,
wet or anything like that, yeah.
And in Asian countries, you shake with the left hand, not the right, because you wipe with the right.
I've heard of that one. I've heard of that
We
one.
need to do that here in America. We need to switch that up. We need to
What's
adopt
up
that.
with the shorts during the day and the pants at night? What's that? What does that mean?
So you have to change. So at night you have to wear pants or something.
Why though? Like, what's the reason?
It gets colder at night, so I think that's part of it. But it's just one of the cultural things they change.
Okay.
But I think their women there don't necessarily do it. But that's one of the like courtesy things to do, I guess, if you're a foreigner in the country. But we had like little pamphlets every country we went, so you have different rules. And with the clothing thing, some places you could wear a tank top, some places you can't. Or men would even have to dress a certain way too. So it was just like different everywhere you went. I still have some. When I was going through my garage, I came across some like pamphlets for the different countries, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna throw these away."
That could be a cool video, girl. Read a book from the country and discuss the culture with your pamphlet.
It's really cool too because some of the places I went when I took my DNA test, I'm like, "Oh, I have Middle Eastern DNA."
There you go.
I had like every continent except for I didn't have anything from Australia. I didn't have anything from South America, which was a bummer because I really wanted that for some reason. But it's like
United Nations.
I had the Middle Eastern, I had the North African, West African, South African. So it was like I just had a little bit of everything, but I didn't have some of the other places that would have been more expected. But anyway, I don't know what I was getting at. Oh, just that I'd been to some of the places. So that was really cool because I could just imagine like people from my ancestry being there too. And like, what would it be like if they never left? And like Oman was so pretty because they have these things they call wadis. And it's like a creek, except for on each side, there's these massive cliffs and these giant like boulder rocks. And the water is like green, but it's not like moss. It's just that's the color, but you could see through it. Oh my gosh, it's just so pretty, but also very hot. I don't think I would like
mind the heat at all.
Not for the hot. Let's see here. Very true. Fat meant wealthy. I have Native American and Polynesian and Brazilian in me also, but no one can tell. They only see the Irish and the Scottish in me. Yeah. Yeah.
I have Egyptian as Spanish and Portuguese in me, but because I don't go out and I actually am a lot darker if I'm out in real life and participating in the world and into sunshine. I've got olive skin. So my kids have Scottish. I also have Scottish in me as well. They have Scottish and English in them, and they're redheads, but they don't burn because they have my olive skin.
That's good.
When I burn it, it turns into a tan. I still have tan lines from 2 years ago. I can see in this light, and they haven't been exposed to any sun because I'm a very modest person. So I'm like, my goodness. That's why I say too, like for me, race goes beyond the DNA because someone like me and Nicole, no one's going to look at us and be like, oh, you have heritage from all these different places. It's just going to be like, no, you're just white.
That's it.
I mean, I take pride in everywhere I'm from. I like being a little melting pot, but I know my perception is always
just in my immediate family. My father was born in Egypt, Alexandria, Egypt. My father's mother is Egyptian. My father's father is Maltese, and he immigrated from Malta to Egypt after the Second World War. Then on my mum's side, we have, on her dad's side is Scottish, English, and they go back 600 years in the Gordon clan. And then on my mum's side, we have Spanish, Gypsies, Portuguese, and English tucked in there, just for good measure. So yeah, and we all look very different. Like I've carried the redhead gene, because to have redheads, you must have two parents that have the redhead gene. I am the only child that's carried the redhead gene through. So I've got 4 kids. My eldest and my second youngest have like a strawberry red hair. It's not auburn, and it's not red, like carrot red as they call it. They don't have freckles or anything like that, and their eyes actually match the color of their hair. And then my eldest daughter and my youngest daughter have the brown in their hair, so it's sort of like a mousy brown with a tint of red in it. And my youngest daughter actually has a full red streak coming out of her crown that goes down the back. And both of those girls, my eldest daughter has deep, dark Spanish brown eyes, so they're almost black. And then my youngest daughter actually has eyes that change color between pale brown and green, depending on her mood. If she's pissed off and she's got green eyes, the hell out of Dodge. Is that woman a gumming for you? She's gonna get you.
Used to get looked at strangely in the shower, and if the sun caught my skin and they noticed the tan color change. Who is your shower? Who's in your shower looking at you? My schoolmate. We probably should talk less and let Nicole and Flo talk about their books. There were only 6 POC in my school. Yeah, so I went from a school where there was only 3 people that were not white, and they were all related. And then the next school I went to, I was in a gifted class, and like I was one of the only white people in and in the school in general. It was probably like 10% white, maybe 80% black, and then the rest were like Hispanic or Asian or some other. So I definitely did things that would be deemed cultural appropriation now. I had braids in my hair. Oh man. But yeah, I know better now. Oh, it makes more sense. Okay. So yeah, Gracie's still not here, and it's been like 2 hours. So I don't know if Grace is going to make it or not. I'm gonna check and see if I've gotten anything message wise. I don't have any response. So I guess we can talk about what we know from the book, and then we will do some games, and we can kind of.
Do you want to do games and try to stall?
Yeah, I mean, we can. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So we'll read Courtney, are you still there, or maybe she got a phone call? I'm gonna read the Mad Lib. I'm gonna read the Mad Lib that we did.
Sorry, I had to get.
You almost needed glitter then. You needed a handful of glitter to throw as you come in. Then
I've seen some TikToks like that.
Y'all ready for this Mad Lib? It's gonna be ridiculous, I'm sure. Okay, dear Nicole Popsicle. Today was my first day at mental hospital. It was so horrible. I only met 6 people, and very few of them seemed to strike up any interest. A yearning pilot called me a mudbutt, and then his girl named Haley Jenner laughed at my crusty outfit. I can't believe what happened today. Anyway, I did enjoy some of it. I met this one tugboat driver named Haley Beaver. This person was super frumpy. I think we'll quickly become jelly koalas. Maybe tomorrow will be better. After all, it was only the first day. Well, I think I will leave you with what one of my zookeepers said to me, who turned the damper all the way down. What in the
Her
world?
Mad Loves are always funny. I love them.
Oh my goodness. Okay, now we get to react to 22 memes only readers will understand. And I've not read these. So if any of them are super inappropriate, don't judge me. Because I didn't read them.
Flo was so excited she dropped her camera.
Okay. First one. I don't care if it's mom's birthday. When you just want to read, but your family won't shut up. Oh my goodness. The little book nerd. Me whenever I see a book. We can vote on which one's the funniest when we're done. Keep fighting when you're tired, but you have only one chapter left.
That was me last night, and I fell asleep in the middle of it. I had 5 pages left. I was like, what the hell am I doing?
Oh man. I think this one definitely gets most relatable so far. Find your happy place. Normal people in a library. Me in a library. Boom, baby. Oh my goodness. How in the world is the author going to sum all this up?
It's got a soul patch at the bottom.
When the book you're reading is almost over and there's too many problems that need to be solved, you just have a mini panic. That happens all the time. There's like 20 pages left, and I'm like, how are they going to do this? And then you find out there's a sequel, and you're not going to get the answer in that book.
Exactly. Oh, it pisses me off.
Oh, this was me this morning.
No, what does that say? Going home and reading all my unread books.
Hell. I thought, judging by the picture, true story. I've
probably got, my husband's probably got a car like that, so I could probably recreate this. For those who don't know, my husband is a car dude, and he has a YouTube channel called King of Toe Crew, and he's a collector of junk, I call it.
I have listened to an audiobook and then almost forgotten my exit, and I've done this. Get over last second. I'm like, whoop, I can make it. Me, I just saw a great movie. Someone who read the book. No. When you stayed up too late finishing a book and someone asked why you couldn't have just stopped and finished later. Way too sleep deprived to deal with your negativity right now. No, someone's reading. Oh,
I'm experiencing that with my husband right now. I've read Daisy Jones and the Six, and he hasn't read it, and we're watching it. And he's trying to find out what's happening by asking me questions. And I'm like, I just sit there and go, it doesn't matter how you ask that question. I'm not answering it. I am not going to be the spoiler. So just stop it. And he's like,
I try to trick my friend sometimes when I'm reading her books, and I'll guess the endings, and I'll be like, I cannot believe so-and-so is pregnant, to see if she'll react like, yeah, I know. And I'll like even be specific sometimes and like give like names and everything. And it's like, I haven't actually got there yet. And she'll ask me, she'll be like, where are you at in the book? Because one time when I said the character's pregnant, I was right, but it wasn't until later. So she was like, where are you at in the book? And I think it was like a different character too. It was weird. When a book makes you angry, but there's no one there to get angry at.
That happens to me.
Say angrily.
I was going to say the character the other day. My husband had no idea. I just kept walking around the house. That bitch. He was like, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the book. That bitch.
This
I've done it. I've walked in the room and I've gone, "What the?" with the actual word, and everybody just stops and looks at me. I'm sorry, I'm listening to a book. Or I've done it at the supermarket, same sort of thing, reacting to the book that's in my ear because I've got my hair down and you can't see my earbud, and like people just look at you really strange, and I'm just like, oh, just listening to a book.
This one right here, when I'm reading in public and the book gets really sexy. This is the face I make because y'all know I listen to a bunch of audiobooks, and I'll be doing it here in my office, and it will be like Ice Planet Barbarians, and they're having sex, and my husband will just come and stand in the doorway and look at me.
I remember I've been at family gatherings, right? And the kids and everybody's doing stuff, and I'm sitting there reading my Kindle, and I'm reading the sex scene, and I'm sitting there like,
yeah. When you find a typo in a published book, oh yes,
yes,
oh, it pisses me off. It's like, really, gotta proofread this crap.
Yeah.
Obviously, we didn't want to read that script that came in. We'll just pop that over there, and it's done.
It's okay to me if you have them self-published books like on Amazon Kindle Unlimited. To me, if it's in there, you know, whatever, right? Yeah. But when it's like a big name author, like in a book, it's got a lot of hype. I mean, like, this better not be a typo. I'll read it 3 or 4 times to be like, maybe I didn't understand it right because I don't expect it to.
Because in traditional publishing, they're getting like 8 passes with like 3 different people.
Yeah.
But with self-publishing, a lot of times now, editors, even your good editors that you pay a couple $100 for, they're only doing 1 pass. Oof. So it's hard to spend $500 on a cheap edit and only get 1 pass. And then when you implement changes, you're bound to probably slip in a couple errors. And so if nobody tells you about them, you're not going to know they're there. So I do exchanges for my edits with my editor because I can't afford it. But I mean, there's some people that just don't do the editing at all. Sometimes you can tell, sometimes you can't. But anyway, when you don't trust the protagonist, but you keep reading anyways. Sometimes I DNF when I can't tell.
That doesn't bother me.
Wow, I love this character. I hope nothing bad happens to them. Author death.
That's the guy that wrote Game of Thrones. He loves killing off his main characters. Yeah. I think he gets great satisfaction out of it.
I love a book that is not afraid to kill off a main character because they keep me on my toes. That to me is awesome.
And then when it happens, you slam the book shut and you're like, no.
Yep, you go get a cup of tea and then you come back. That's what I do. I take a break.
I definitely do this too.
I'm glad to see this because when I go into the bookstore, I never see anybody else do this, but I do it. And I'm like, do I look stupid?
Well, a lot of times it's because someone else is standing in front of the section I'm trying to look at, and I ain't patient enough to wait for them to move. So I'm like, let me see what that is. Oh, man. It's a journey. Reads the last line again, closes the book, deep sigh, screams, throws book out the window, jumps out the window after it, rises in pain while clutching the book, cries and rocks it back and forth, puts it down on the shelf, deep breath, calls friend, read this book.
Evolution right there.
Oh, my goodness. There are 2 types of people.
I used to do that back in the day, and when I joined BookTube, I immediately was like, "I'm not doing that again."
I would don't admit to that. You'll be
I used to do it when I was little, yes, but the books were also already like yellowed, aged pages, so I didn't feel bad about it. And I'm talking like library books. I used to even underline sentences with pencil in library books because I didn't know
you're not the only one. Really? I've got books from the library that have been annotated and like underlined. I'm like, what the hell? You don't want to check this book and rub it out?
Yeah, I will say this was like elementary school library type situation, but yeah, I definitely did that. And of course, textbooks in school, I would highlight and underline. When I accidentally drop my book, it's okay. You're okay. Oh,
I'm rough on books, y'all. I be dropping books left and right. No, y'all see if y'all see my videos, I'll be like, done with that one. Done with that one. I just throw it on the ground.
That's how I feel.
Book publisher,
Book publisher, book with the movie version. I don't get it. It says the same thing
Like,
on
you know
both.
how like when a movie comes out, they'll change the cover of the book.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yep.
I hate that.
I don't know why he's. Oh, is he tossing? He's tossing the
Yeah.
plate. I didn't see the
Oh,
plate.
that's what it is.
Didn't
You
get it.
can't see it because the writing's almost on the book. that
Yeah.
he's tossing.
See, now I like the movie cover if I started by watching the movie.
Mm.
But if I didn't, I'm like, no, unless they're going to do the whole series like that. Because I want the stuff to match.
Mm-hmm.
Reading is my therapy, but reading is also why I need therapy. That might be the last. Nope, we still got one. You can't date a fictional character swimming away from your lives. Okay, so which one do y'all think is the funniest or most relatable? To me, it's going to be the Squidward with the eyeballs.
One.
Yeah, number 4. Yeah, I like 4 and 11 are my favorites, but yeah, number 4.
11. What was 11?
I like 20. 20 was good.
The throwing plate.
Yeah. Or the book sale one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I'm glad they were all appropriate. I did like the Beauty and the Beast one too. Oh, this one, the angry one. Gotcha. I don't know what 4 was. Was 4 Squidward?
I think so.
It's a good thing I told y'all ahead of time we would vote. Maybe. Oh, it's this one, the library.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That was fun.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to Flo. Sorry, I couldn't see the screen, so I didn't know you were waiting.
Yeah. So I like the book sale one.
Awesome.
And you want me to talk about my book now?
Oh, yeah. I thought you did already.
I did, yeah.
No, we were going in order, but I'm sure you were waiting to go into further depth if she got here.
Oh, yeah, we went off on a tangent. I thought we had already done. My bad.
Yeah.
The tired one was me last night finishing the Orange Tree.
Oh my God, that big old book.
So I have to read that one.
I DNF'd the book because there was a couple things. So one was I thought I was going to start to develop a tick and start saying that guy's name over and over again because he had like 4 names and they would say the full name every single time.
Oh
and I was like, nope, too many. I can't do the full name like 5 times in one paragraph. It's too much. And then there was the casual references to sexual assault, including of his wife. And I was like, no, because there was like 2 instances within like the first hour. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And then just the nonsensical imagery. I guess I like things more literal, even if they're fantasy. If it makes sense in a magical world, I can still get with it. But when it's like too fantastical, I'm like, nope, I can't picture that. So I know you said you're enjoying it so far. So now that I've said why I don't enjoy it, I want to know why you are enjoying it.
I am loving the voice of the John Lee that is narrating it. And just as children's fables are horrid, I don't know how we lived through them as children. That's why I'm okay with this. I guess it takes a lot to shake me up. I'm more frightened by animal cruelty than I am by things that happened, such as men dominating their women back then. I'm not going to speak on that subject, but I'm not shying away from that because I guess I have a nerve for it, I guess. But like if it was animal cruelty, then I would definitely have tuned it out a long time ago. I like the tone of the narrator's voice. I like the way that it's being told. I feel like I'm being taken on a journey through a village, and I feel like it's very realistic. I can see all the imagery in my head as he's going and the story is unfolding. So I'm definitely on board with it.
I don't even know if I got to the village part. I was just talking. Oh man, I was like, I have OCD, and I was like, the repetition of this person's name is just gonna be filtering through my dreams.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So what is the book? What is the book actually about?
See, that was the other thing. I couldn't figure it out.
Okay, so it's just about, it's just taking you through the life of, I don't know if I could say it, the Buenino family. So just as anything would occur in your household, it's just what occurred in theirs, as to like when they met, when he became a father, how he was into alchemy when he should have been, you know, more adult or more mature. He like would pawn his, not pawn, but exchange his wife's coins that she had been inherited from her father. Nothing really had value to him because he was like blindsided with this alchemy, and he was just determined with this. So I think very immature in that way, but it's just playing out the life of this family when they had sons, and then it just goes on from there. Like I said, I'm about halfway through the book, maybe not quite halfway through.
I'm messaging Grace real quick to see if she's on yet.
Did she finish it? Do you know?
It was a reread for her.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it was one of her favorites in high school. Okay. See if we get a response.
One of the books that I just finished too was The Hobbit. I have the book and I did the Audible version of it. And I started that book loving it. And then by the end of it, I was like, I felt like it was just one big fight.
Oh.
They were always fighting.
Oh.
And that's the first time I took on a book of that nature. And my friend in work, she's into these Dungeon and Dragon books. And so she absolutely loved The Hobbit. And I know so many other people do. And I wouldn't say I loved it, but I would say I enjoyed it. And I definitely think that I would reread that book again, but I wouldn't have it read to me. I would actually read the physical book myself to see if I got more out of it or liked it a little bit more than I actually came away with.
Yeah.
I think that
Tolkien is one of those authors that I think he really lends himself to reading the physical word, not having it read to you.
Yeah.
Because he is like he's very descriptive and poetic in his writings and all that sort of stuff. But if you don't get the right narrator, the books fall short. So you really have to find, and there's many different adaptations out there that people have done. So you really have to find the right narrator for it. So definitely revisit it again, but read it physically and take your time too. Don't try to rush through it. Just have it there that you just read it every now and again, because he can get a little bit wordy at times. But yeah, I struggle to read his books. I prefer other authors over him. So yeah, but that's just my opinion. That I'd probably be, if there was villagers around, they'd probably be at my door taking me off, because that's a fandom that you don't want to rock the boat in.
So now we'll get into the Q&A section, and it's really short. So what is your favorite classic, or you can have like two if you want. We'll just start with Nell and then circle back around to me.
I haven't read a ton of classics, and like the classes that you're supposed to read in school, I didn't read them. The only one that I actually, because like we were supposed to read The Crucible or like the Canterbury Tales, or didn't read any of that stuff. Don't know how I passed high school. So the one that I did actually read was The Great Gatsby. So I guess by default that would have to be my answer.
You could do a top
Well-
3, Nicole, because I know you got a lot.
Again, these questions, pick your favorite. It's like asking me to pick one of my children. It is near impossible. But if I had to pick anything, I would have to go with all of the novels from the Bronte sisters. I absolutely love the Bronte sisters. They write strong, moralistic, well-rounded, in my opinion, well-rounded women that are forging a way in their life and not necessarily relying on a man to help them get them to where they want to be. And they stand up for their convictions. If they say that they're not going to do something, they won't do it. And out of all of the Bronte sisters, anything by Anne Bronte is my favourite. And I think it was a huge loss to the literary world when she died at the age of 29.
Oh, man. And she's the one that did the book that we're doing next month?
Yeah.
Winfield Hall or whatever it's called?
Yeah, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, yeah. It's also like that. A lot of people say that it's like one of the first feminist novels as well. So just be prepared for a little bit of a different storyline. It's no Jane Austen. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Okay.
And there's no, oh my God. And I like that they like is it who wrote Wuthering Heights? I like which one was
Emily Bronte.
Yeah, Emily Bronte. I like how she's wrote her characters dark. Like yeah, she really got the epitome of what a toxic relationship was down on paper back in the day. Like yeah, everybody should read that book just to know what sort of relationships they should avoid. So yeah, Bronte's for me.
I don't know if I really. I haven't read a whole lot of classics. I did read those that they make you read in school, like Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights.
Didn't read any of that.
Wuthering Heights. I don't know why that sounded weird in my head. I did like A Raisin in the Sun. I don't know. I felt like I was forced to read those books, so I can't say I like the storyline of Wuthering Heights, but I'm not a big fan of reading it.
It was definitely not a romance.
I do like, I mean, if you want to say movie, if we want to go classics, I haven't read the book, but I absolutely love Pride and Prejudice, the movie. I can't speak on the book, but so I won't say I have any favorites. I did enjoy Passing a lot. I would say of all the classics and what we define as classics, I guess, I would say that one I like the most, but I'm not like, oh, I love it. So I won't say I have any favorites. So
what you got, Flo?
I got East of Eden is my favorite since the day I read it. And taking from what you said, Heather, that it's got to get you within the first page or two. It got me from the cover, and when I opened it up and I began to read it, it was all about me. And then I also love the Grapes of Wrath, and I'm a mood reader, and I read the Grapes of Wrath when it was extremely hot. It was in the summer, so I felt like I was in this sort of dust bowl. I felt like the depravity that was going on. I know poor, I know like hard times. So I lived that whole story with them, and I loved it.
I forgot about the Grapes of Wrath. I did enjoy that, and I saw
Never
the
heard of
movie
it.
too. But you know what? I have another mention though. We're talking about I read dead people as long as they're not alive. Octavia Butler. I do enjoy her books. What was the book? Clay's Ark. There you go.
I was supposed to read that this month.
It was very good. She died in
to
2006, so she fits the bill. So Clay's Ark, Octavia Butler. Awesome. Loved it.
So for classic play, I'm going to go with Much Ado About Nothing. I didn't think about until now you said yours. I don't know why. I guess you were talking about what you had to read in school, and I was like, oh, I had to read that for theater. So I liked that one. They had like a layman's terms one or whatever, which was good. Count of Monte Cristo, but I read the abridged version, so it was
That's
like
a long
half the
book.
size. It was like 500 pages instead of 1,000. Then
There's
the
a
other
lot of
one,
pages missing out of that book you read.
yes, yes. And then the other one would be Owl Leroy, which we read for I Read Dead People.
Oh.
So those are my top three. So you got a funny, a vengeful, and then just a really interesting story in just a whole few pages.
There you go. There you go.
What's that? Are we getting a bad storm? No! I just got an alert on my phone that we have a tornado watch.
Oh,
What?
no.
Yeah.
Hide in the bathroom.
Like, I don't hear no wind. I don't hear nothing going on. But last year in January, no, December and January, we had 2 tornadoes in my city. The first one wiped out my gym. Thank goodness that they were closed when it happened. Nobody got hurt there, but it was destructive. And then the second one was 2 weeks later, and it had took out everything. We're talking like less than a mile from my house was its path. So I like narrowly escaped 2 bad tornadoes, and they are still repairing damage. I'm like, after seeing the damage that took, and then like, you know, having to shelter and talking about people in my city that had used a belt to tie themselves to like a pipe in the bathroom, and the tornado blew down their house. They survived because they had thought to tie themselves to the pipe.
Wow.
And see, my city didn't even get it the worst. The worst was like down quite a ways, and it leveled the entire city.
Wow.
Like literally, there was not anything standing. It leveled everything. Same
You're
tornado.
in Kentucky, right?
Yeah, it was one. It was like the worst historic tornado for like over 100. It was really bad. So
Like
See, my
yourself,
family's-
never going to Kentucky.
we
Staying
don't.
in Australia where I don't get them.
I mean, we don't normally have them much. We'll get a lot of like. I guess I can never remember the difference between a watch and a warning. One is just where there's the possibility of it. One is like we see it.
Yeah.
It's
Take
coming.
cover. So I don't know, but
See, my family's from Texas. We get hurricanes down there. So I know when Hurricane Harvey hit in my little small town, you know, it didn't, I don't think it wiped out anything like leveled like a tornado, but there was like a lot of like damage and water. Like my mom had to move, her place was flooded, and they still have a lot. I mean, it's a poor town, so a lot of people really can't even afford to replace roofs. So you have a lot of blue tarps. You know, they put the tarp over the roof to waterproof it. You have a lot of homes that still look like that.
See, no, we didn't have a tornado like a week or two ago, but we had high winds, and it knocked down a tree in the front yard. Like a full tree went across the road, and people went out there with chainsaws to get it out of the way. That was my neighbor's yard. They still have the tree. It also tore off my shed door. Like completely tore it off. What are you showing me now? Oh,
you're just bringing bad news all the time.
It's like the bearer of bad news. Stop coming in.
Stephen has given me an image that will help me remember. So a watch. We have the ingredients to make a taco, meaning there's the possibility of it. Warning: we're having tacos right now. So,
okay, so I'm wondering if it's around already.
Watch, it's possible. Maybe don't go to sleep so you can be alert to take cover. So, what did we get, honey? A watch or a warning? He said he don't know. Hey, Alexa, is there a tornado warning right now?
It's 60 degrees Fahrenheit with cloudy skies. Tonight's forecast has rainy weather with a low of 60 degrees. Would you also like tomorrow's weather?
No. Don't worry, she didn't dox me. I don't live in Bowling Green anymore.
Yeah, Alexa, man, my Alexa be tripping. She don't even, half the time she don't do what we says. It's annoying.
She still didn't give me the answer I asked for. But Bowling Green.
Look out the window. Oh, it's
40
dark.
minutes
You can't look out
away.
the window. I was going to say, I can look out the window and know that I've got a storm coming this afternoon.
Well,
Yeah.
be safe, Heather.
Yeah,
Make sure you keep a belt nearby.
I gotta warm up my fish sticks and eat dinner. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be having dinner at 9:31. I cooked them before we started this.
Oh my gosh.
Remember, I took them out of the oven right before we went live. It was funny.
So do we have any more questions?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. That was just the first one. Worst classic that you've ever read.
Oh, I know.
So, off the top of my head, I am thinking one of them would be Great Expectations. I DNF'd. I couldn't even make it through the children's version that had pictures. But that's not to say I don't like Charles Dickens, because I absolutely loved Hard Times. But I hated Great Expectations. I know I have another one, but I can't think of it right now, so we can go ahead and go to now.
I don't know. Because like I said, I didn't read them, so I don't know.
I think the worst one I read was probably Wuthering Heights.
That wasn't even something that we had to read. We didn't even have to read that.
Oh, wait, no. Dracula, not Wuthering
I was
Heights.
going to say, you hated Dracula.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, you were very passionate about your hate for Dracula.
Because I listened to 11 hours of it and hated it the whole time and felt like I needed to finish it. And I was like, no, I'm dead. But as far as one that I actually finished, I did not like Wuthering Heights. It was not happy. It was not a romance.
No, it's a dark romance.
It was well
toxic
done.
romance.
It's just not one that I like.
Yeah.
So, but it was well done.
Got nothing now?
Yeah.
Got nothing.
The books
I'm
that
gonna
you
go
guys
with-
talk about, books that I never even read. I either never read it or I've never heard of it. So
Well, I was like you now. I read none of them in high school at all. I just didn't want to. If we had to read it, I was running for the hills, basically. So it's only been in the last 3 years that I've actually got into classics because I want to do it, not someone forcing me to do it. And I think with people, they need to come to the classics at their own rate and not have it shoved down their throat. But for me, the one book that I have read in the last couple of years that I absolutely hate and I would burn it, and I don't believe in burning books, but this one I would, and that's Emma by Jane Austen. I cannot stand that book. It is so boring. Like, there's pages and pages of dialogue about a Dan roast dinner. I don't really care about your roast dinner.
Oh man, I'm wondering if that's the thick one I have up here. I don't know which. There's a big one up here, and I'm like, this is big.
Pride and no, Jane Austen's books aren't that big.
Mansfield Park.
Oh yeah, Mansfield Park's a decent chunk, but it's not.
That writing's probably tiny, huh?
Oh,
I didn't mind Mansfield Park. Mansfield Park's all right.
Yeah,
that's not too bad.
Yeah, I read a lot of classics when I was in high school. The more y'all talking about stuff, the more I'm realizing that I read them, like Great Expectations. I actually did enjoy that. But I read a lot of stuff, but I mean, that was eons ago. If you say a title, then I can be like, oh, I remember reading that. Do I remember all the details? No, but yeah, you know, I hate that they make you analyze them back and forth and all that stuff. And I'm just like,
and as an author, I just think all of that was laughable when they're like, what does this color represent? Because as an author now, I'm like, it don't mean nothing. It means I pictured the color blue. That was the curtains. It might have been that the location was California, so I wanted it to be beachy. That's about as deep as it goes.
That's about as deep as it goes. I love it. That's got to be a shirt. That's it.
I'm not like analyzing every single color. I'm just like, my goodness. The color thing was a big thing for The Great Gatsby. It was like, oh, the cream and green colored car represents wealth.
Yeah, I hated the analyzation.
Oh, I never got that representation, but I get that now.
Depression. Blue is depression. Like it's just the weird stuff.
I always used to be like, so who's interpreting this? Are you? Like the teachers are always, I'm like, is this what you think? Now, why can't I think what I think? Like, why are you
like the authors
like
these things. It's the teachers coming up with things to make it seem more important.
Exactly.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I was the kid up the back just snoozing.
I was trying to be the good student, but I was bored.
I was one of those terrible students that could sit in class and muck around and still pass the class, and have teachers say to me, if I didn't know any better, I'd say you cheated. But seeing you sat at my desk and I was sitting right in front of you, I know you didn't cheat. But because I'm able to take everything in. And
government economics class where I was somehow making a 103, and he let me sit in the back of the class and play Uno with my friends. Hello, class. We played Uno every day. But the jocks would ask for help. So he would have like a question on the board, and we would have to like write a paragraph answer. And I'd be like, I wrote this, but you write this. It's a slight iteration.
Let's play the game.
What do you got, Flo? What was your worst classic?
I read it in a day on a road trip, a beautiful sunny day, and the road trip took about 5 hours. And the book that I read was George Orwell, 1984, and it turned my stomach, and it made me realize I hate dystopia, and I wanted to take a bath when I finished it. And I would agree with Nicole. If I were into burning books, that would be the first book on the pile.
I've always wanted to read that book.
Me too.
And just to clarify for the audience, we don't burn books.
Right.
They have mildew or bookworms in them. Or water damage. No. Oh, man. Okay, so next is a classic that you want to read. Yeah, I'd say 1984 would be one I think would be interesting to read for me.
There are a bunch that I would want to read because I didn't read them before. Like I would definitely want to read like 1984, To Kill a Mockingbird. I want to reread Catcher in the Rye. I did actually read that and I liked it, but that was like 9th grade, so I haven't read
that one, but it's so famous that would probably be another one. And
Yeah.
West Side Story.
What else? Ordinary People, I think is what it was called. I think that's the name of the book. Those are like the main four. Because like To Kill a Mockingbird is like something that everybody talks about. They always talk about the characters in that book, and I'm just like, I don't get the reference because I haven't read the book.
Sadly.
Yeah, I don't get the reference. I don't understand it. But yeah, 1984. I want to reread Catcher in the Rye, To Kill a Mockingbird, and what was the last one I said? Oh, I would want to reread The Crucible too. That's another one that I would definitely want to not reread because I didn't finish it the first time, but I would want to read that too.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
I've never read that.
It's
October's book. What do you got, Nicole?
I'm just looking because I've got some books here that I want to read. I think I actually have two that I really want to read. One I'm actually starting next month, and that is Anna Karenina.
I've heard of
Hang
that.
on.
Isn't that like about a Russian something?
Yeah, it's Russian. It's by Leo Tolstoy, and the other one is War and Peace. So that's the next year. So War and Peace, I've always wanted to read it. It's been up there for a long time, along with The Count of Monte Cristo, which we're reading through the Serialized Book Club. And this one actually has 1,273 pages in it, War and Peace. I do have that down. But Anna Karenina, we're starting with the Serialized Book Club in April. And then just slowly but surely reading it. Yeah. There's a ton more, but two of it.
What you got, Courtney?
I was looking at Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I don't know if there's any. I would say I would not mind venturing into some Black classics because I have definitely read like a lot of these classics y'all are talking about already. So I wouldn't mind that. Like, I mean, I consider Octavia Butler a classic, and I did a blog with her a few months ago, and I really did enjoy the sci-fi. So I wouldn't mind delving into anybody that's in the science fiction, fantasy, classical realm. Now, do I know who those people are? No. So as I delve, I'll look around.
Doing a
Does
lot
that
next year.
Say again?
So we'll probably wind up doing a lot more of that next year.
Mhm.
This year, a lot of the picks were based off of what I already owned.
Yeah.
So we'll have a lot more spaces to fill next year.
Yeah.
was there many?
Oh yeah.
Was there
Yeah,
many
that
in
had
there?
a-
That,
Yes, that book. Oh, I did a little short on that earlier this week. It's
Yeah.
been sitting on my desk for the last 4 weeks, and I was like, okay, Nicole told me about it. I got it. What am I going to do with it? And I was just going to flip through it, which I mean, I didn't read it front to back. I just kind of flipped through it and jot some ideas about stuff. But then I was like, let me make a short because other people might not have seen this too.
I was
So,
surprised.
I listed you on there.
anybody that's doing the Read Around the World challenge, where's
Yep,
the
I
camera?
saw that too.
Yeah, in this book, it actually has Read Around the World,
yeah.
and it actually gives you book titles
Oh my gosh.
for every country. So, and they're all diverse. So,
I was surprised it was up to date enough to have something like the Poet X. Because that's pretty modern.
well, I found this by accident on Scribd. I was scrolling through, and it came up, and this was published in 2021.
Oh my
I put this
gosh.
together, and there's a little. You can also get the little book journal
Ah,
as well to go with it. It's a decent book journal, like. So I grabbed both of them when I was saying it. I'm like, oh, I'll grab that because that it's a good reference point to read more books that you haven't heard of and from authors that you haven't heard of and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
what you got, Flo?
I too have War and Peace sitting on my shelf that I want to get to, and for the longest time I have been wanting to read Their Eyes Were Watching God, and Courtney sparked my whatever goes off when you hear a book.
Zora
Now
Neale
I
Hurston.
want to read A Raisin in the Sun.
See, I read all these books y'all talking about when I was younger, like To Kill a Mockingbird, Raisin in the Sun, Great Expectations, all those things. Like I will say in my high school, they definitely put emphasis on the classics, and I read quite a bit of them. Do I remember most of them? No. Am I going to go back and read them? No. I do remember I've read many of them.
The next question is a classic that you never want to read. I'm going to go with The Art of War.
Probably anything that's too long.
Okay, so you're not joining us for War and Peace then now?
No.
I would want the Cliff Notes. I would be interested in reading the Cliff Notes, but not the real.
I don't want that.
Not Anna Karenina either? Like
No.
to be?
No.
No. Anna Karenina probably would be at the top of the list of books that I would not want to read.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's like this right here is probably going to be the biggest book I ever read.
What is that?
The Count of Monte Cristo, because I already know I like it.
Oh.
This is just twice the size of the
That
version.
story sounds good, but I don't think I would ever actually read the book.
Oh, it's really good. I already read the
about.
100 pages again, and it's really good. Or 76 pages.
It sounds good. From what I've heard, like the premise of it, it sounds like it's a really interesting story, but I just don't think that I will ever actually pick it up.
It is. I am absolutely amazed by the story so far. Like it's really, really good. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and it's killing me only reading 10 chapters a month because that's how we're reading it, which is like I think the first 10 chapters was only 80 pages, and then I think it was 110 for the next one, and I think it was only 100 for up until chapter 30. And where chapter 30 ended, it was like, oh, it was right on the cliff. I had to close the book. I'm like, don't look, don't look, don't look. You'll just get sucked into it. I had to put it down. And every day I walk past it and I'm just like, I want to pick it up and keep reading. But I only have to wait till next week and then I can read it.
Yeah, 30 is on, chapter 30 starts on page 239 of my version. So even if you hadn't started, it's not technically too far behind to catch up.
How many chapters?
The last 20 pages.
How many chapters do you have in that big old book?
Oh my.
Well, it goes all year and we're reading 10 chapters a month. So
it is 100 and oh my gosh, I can't even. So it's a C is 100 and then it has X, so 10 and then a 9. 119?
I think it's about 119, 120, something like that.
Yeah, 119. Quite a bit. Who is next for one that you don't want to read?
Did you go, Nicole?
I think it was me. I don't know. Did you say now?
Yeah, Anna Karenina.
Yep. I'll just go with one that Nicole's pulling off first.
I've heard of that book. My trainer was talking about that book a couple months ago, and I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah. I would not want to read Lolita.
Oh, God. Yeah.
The movie's good, though.
Never heard of it.
It is a pedophile relationship.
Yeah.
Oh?
Pedophile.
Oh.
Pedophile, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing about the movie as well, Lolita, that what they did to the girl in that to get her reaction for the movie and stuff like that was pretty intense. Like there's a whole backstory to that. I have no interest in watching the movie or even reading the book. I've never actually looked up what it is actually about, but I've just heard, like I've been told, like the content of it, and it's just not something that I want to read at all. So, yeah.
It surprises me now that I'm an adult, the amount of things that parents let their actress or actor children endure. Like I remember Dakota Fanning, she was like 8 years old and she was in Hound Dog, which is where like her mother and the family were all being physically abused, and then she is assaulted and they filmed the assault. And I'm just like an 8-year-old having to bear that amount of emotion and not really understanding exactly what's happening. I'm just like, that is a lot. And like, she's an incredible actress, but should she have had to do that at 8? I'm just like, my goodness.
You ever seen that movie? There's a movie that was on Netflix called Cuties. That everybody was talking about they're going to cancel their Netflix subscription. That was crazy.
I think sometimes there can be where it's not completely one way or another, where it's like on face value, of course, there's going to be one opinion, but then when you actually watch the media, you're like, okay, I can see this was the point. I know with Cuties, that was the point that the director was trying to make, was the exploitation of children, how it begins. So I felt like that was done in a meaning. I did wind up watching it because I was like, I can watch this to have my own opinion, and it's supposed to make you uncomfortable.
It was. It was. I just wish that, you know how a lot of times in Hollywood they'll use adults to play teens. What I didn't like I got the point of it, but I wish they would have used legal, like 18 and up children, because they use legit like children filming between their legs and all that stuff. And I was like, and in the underwear, and I was uncomfortable by the fact that these are legitimately children and like in real life children, not 18-year-olds playing children. I just felt like if they were going to use kids, I feel like they should have had it a little bit more tame, because it was, I was just like, oh my gosh. I was
shocked. The thing too is like, as an adult, it's like, okay, you can understand the point of the film and why, like even with the Dakota Fanning thing, it's like, okay, you have to have the actress to portray it. but at the same time, thinking through the lens of a parent, how could you let it be your child?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I get the film merits, but at the same time, it's like I don't the mental gymnastics to allow that for your own children. I don't know how I could do that.
It's called money, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got all to do with money, nothing to do with morals or the protection of children.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't give a rat's backside what parents stood in front of me and said, "Oh no, I'm doing it for the child." No, you're not. You're doing it for your own self-satisfaction.
I don't even understand how they have 5-year-olds that they write in the script for them to say the F word. I'm like, what 5-year-old needs to learn to say the F word? I'm just like, my goodness.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you feel about cussing, I'm like, writing it into a script intentionally for a 5-year-old to be using that language for shock factor. I'm just like, it's cheap. But Courtney, your turn.
I'm gonna say probably most of the books y'all are talking about.
Yeah.
War and Peace will probably be right up there. Anna Karenina, Les Miserables, all that stuff.
Oh my gosh, Les Miserables.
It's right up there, but pretty much all of it. I feel like I have this thing in my head of books that are written around the time by potential oppressors or around the time that Black people are not in a positive light, then I don't have any desire to go back.
Yeah.
And read books in that era.
Yeah.
What you got, Flo?
I got what Courtney said, all of the above.
You feeling me, girl?
I'll do War and Peace, but that's it. And actually, I got Lolita at my library book sale this summer. It was like $1 or $2. I didn't know anything about the book. It was a saddle shoe. We used to wear saddle shoes. So I was like, yeah, okay, well, when we're done with this, I'm going right down there and I'm going to put it on a pile of books that I am going to get rid of. Yeah, I don't want to go there.
Y'all ever had some books that you've read that you felt like were so bad you didn't even want to try to resell them or give them away?
Yes, because I was reading a book I bought innocently enough from Target, and I always put my name in my book. And I told my friend today, I am embarrassed that my name is in this book. I'm embarrassed for the characters in this book. And she goes, "Write your name out," and I'm going to write my name out before I put it out there. I don't want anybody to know I owned it.
I had the book you remember the Jersey Shore?
Yeah.
I had their book. It was mostly a bunch of pictures and stuff. This was years ago. And how did I get it? I think I got it as like a gift. And then I was trying to sell it at a yard sale and I couldn't even give it away. I wound up trying to give it away for free and nobody even wanted it. It was like a quarter. No. I'm like, it's a quarter. Okay, here, you can have it for free. No, I don't want it. I'm like,
The most given away book that I've seen at like a used bookstore is the Sisterhood of the Yaya Sisterhood.
Wow.
I didn't read that, but I love the movies.
I haven't seen it, but it's in every used bookstore.
Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. I love that.
Oh yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, it was a really good movie.
Yaya Sisterhood. I never read that one, but it was like a big book club book, and then everyone got rid of it after they read it.
Yes, it was big for a while. You're right.
Oh man. All right, so the next question is the worst trope in classics, and I'm gonna go with trying to get with your cousin. No.
I'm right there.
We're all in agreement on that one. Oh, man.
I don't think I've
Oh,
read
those
enough
are the ones where they're
classics
like.
to question.
Sorry, go. Sorry.
No, I don't. I just saying I don't think I've read enough classics to be able to answer that question.
It's a common theme. The damn cousin. Always coming in.
No, here's another common theme. The woman witnesses something traumatic and then she runs away. Like, why is she always running away to go somewhere? Like, literally running.
Pick up those skirts and start running.
It's so annoying.
Oh man.
And that's just not in classic book. That's also in like, you know, you have those like Harlequin romance that are set during that era. It's in almost every single one of them.
Yeah.
Somebody,
Oh,
the
damn.
cousin or the brother tries to rape her, and then she runs away. Oh.
I would be running if someone came after me. A shotgun or an axe. Oh man, what you got, Flo?
Oh, nothing really bothers me like that. No, I could get through all that. Other than the dystopia type of, nothing really. I don't care if you want to get with your cousin or whatever. I don't care. I can get through it.
Oh man.
I mean, I can read it. It doesn't bother me reading it. It's just like, does it have to be in every book? Could you not have picked something else to write about in that era? Surely something else was happening. Surely people were marrying outside their family, you know, like, because it just seems to be every single book has a cousin that's come into the picture. But again, it goes back to those laws that were in place in certain places around the world where the women couldn't inherit. So, and to keep it in the family, especially in England, like especially with like your Jane Austens and all the other ones that are around that Victorian era and whatnot. So yeah, there's a lot of that happening.
Up until I started the BookTube channel, I read very, very little fiction and not too many classics at all. I'm basically not a nonfiction reader. So this is a learning experience for me, and also a growth. It's progressing me in my growth. I'm pretty proud of myself.
Yes, that's cool.
And then the last question is mostly just probably going to be Nicole. Books lost in translation.
Okay, let's talk about a book lost in translation, shall we? Okay, so Eugenie Granite is basically a book that is following the provincial life of someone. Okay, it's set in France, and again, there is the cousin marrying, so it's not just exclusive for England. It also happened in French books as well, and basically, I think if this was written, if I could read French and I could read it in French, I would have appreciated the story a bit more, because I think that there's a lot of things that get lost in translation when they take it from the French language to the English. And this is definitely one of them. And this was the book that I was going to talk about, because it was very highly focused on the dollar value of everything in this particular family. So the father was quite a hoarder of money. That's the only way to describe it. He had his family living to their bare minimums, even down to how much coal they could have for heating and all that sort of stuff. His brother was declared bankrupt, and so the French way of getting out of bankruptcy, so your family wasn't shamed or anything, was to commit suicide. So the brother, he let his brother, even though he had the money there to get him out of his debts, he still let his brother commit suicide. And he took his son in, and his son was the son fell in love with the cousin, and vice versa. They fell in love with each other, and basically the father was steering the cousin away and making him go overseas because he didn't want his money to go to the son. And he lied to the son about what happened to his father and how it all came about and all that sort of stuff. He also lied to the cousin and said that further down the track, that he was going to take care of all the debts, and he didn't take care of all the debts. Thankfully, the father had died a horrible death, in my opinion. and he just treated his family really bad, and it was all about the amount of money that he could hoard. And meanwhile, he sent Charles off into the Indies somewhere, and Eugenie was devastated that he was sent away to earn money, like to earn a name for himself. I guess that's what it is, what they were trying to portray, but it just wasn't coming across that way in this book. And that's where I say lost in translation with some of these French and Russian and all the rest of it. They just seem to lose the story and the passion in the story. And it's not the first book that I've read like this in French literature. And yeah, so it was just really hard to read. Like, he was doing all this stuff to his family, but you don't really know why he was doing it, because he died. And she, in France, the women could inherit. So she ended up with all the money and ended up paying out the cousin anyway and getting rid of all the debts so he could hold his head high and be in society and wouldn't have to top himself. So that's what it sort of all revolved around. But there was just so much that didn't make sense as I was reading it, because it's been translated from the French to English and it's just been lost, what they were trying to say. But yeah, not a good book.
Sounds
Not happy with this book.
Yeah.
I read this weeks ago and it's been sitting there. I don't even want to review it. Like, it's been sitting there and I keep looking at it and go, yeah, I really should talk about that book. Yeah, I've talked about that book now, so I'm not going to do it on my channel.
You can always like put down the time, so it's like you could put down like 2:45 or something, and then share it where it'll autoplay from that point. And be like,
Yeah.
here's the review.
I mean, I'm happy that I've read it, because I don't think I can get a better understanding of diverse literature if I don't read it. You know, like, yes, it might be it might be a white dude that wrote the book, but if I don't read those books and read from many different authors, how can I get a broader perspective of what is a good classic and what isn't a good classic? For me, This is not a good classic, because it's been translated from the French into the English, and it's lost something. It's lost its poetic writing has been lost, because I'm sure that there's a lot of words that are used in French that just don't translate well into English, and it just loses that little oomph that it might have had. I mean, it was a pretty shitty story anyway, but yeah, it was just weird. And there was a guy that had a stutter in it. Do you know how hard it is to read someone with a stutter? Like,
well, it's good that they included that, because
they
there are people
included
that
it,
have
but
that, so it's a
it was hard going.
representation. Yeah.
Like, this is, I don't know whether you'll be able to see it. This is where there's a guy with a stutter.
I can't.
Or something like that,
really,
where like there's a strong dialect. Like, I've read a Western before and it had like a really thick like Texas type thing. And with my OCD, it's like my brain also tries to say it. So then I'm like double guessing, and then I'll backtrack, and it gives me anxiety. I'll listen to the audiobook, because
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say. Audiobook it. I think you're developing.
I actually couldn't.
It.
I couldn't find an audiobook when I was reading this until I think I was about 3/4 of the way through, and then I finally found one, because I didn't want to pay for it. So I was looking for a free one, and there wasn't a free one on Audible, and then I ended up finding one on Scribd. And I think with Scribd here, when I start, like, I'll search for something and it's not on there, and then a couple of weeks later it'll suddenly appear. So I think it's a little bit like our Netflix as well. Like, something won't be on Netflix, and then you'll search it, and then all of a sudden it just starts popping up, and it's like, oh, well, that wasn't there last week. And yeah, so I think it's a little bit, and like YouTube's exactly the same as well. Like, you don't see anything on, half square triangles, for instance, and then all of a sudden you say that while you're recording live, or you search it, and all of a sudden your whole feed's full of it. So yeah,
I was looking for the alert thing because it had started to say something, but it didn't finish saying whatever it was trying to say. It has us in a medium for the tornado possibility.
We'll let you know if the roof starts to come apart behind you.
Yeah.
It's 1 a.m. So a couple hours. I mean, like, this is the radar right now where I'm at.
Lightning bolts.
I don't know if the lightning means power outages or what. I hope my power don't go out again, because that already happened to us once. But it's not over my city yet. It's just coming in that direction. But I started to hear thunder, but that's about it. I don't even think it's raining yet. But anyway, anything else y'all want to talk about? Classics in general, anything like that? I know this is like the longest one we've ever had, 3 hours.
Good time.
Also, I think the most posts we've had.
Yep.
In time. So that's pretty cool. And
I
we
think
were
wasn't passing really long too? Well, didn't that go like for 4 hours or something?
Yeah, but we stopped talking about passing and we were just talking. It's
Yeah,
like girl
true.
chat. Fun times.
I think we haven't had a viewer in a couple hours, so because the last comment was an hour ago, I think everyone was like, "All right, time for bed."
I think Brandy's sprinting, so that might be.
Oh man, I had fun though. It was fun. But yeah, if that's all we got, I guess we'll end the show. Y'all can I think lightning
What
just
was that? Yeah.
because I saw the flash through the computer.
Yeah, I saw it too.
It's like I might want to microwave my fish sticks before the goes out.
We're ending this
Doing now,
podcast
otherwise we'll be doing it
because
this
of
way.
lightning.
Tornadoes coming our way. Goodbye. No, I want the views. Leave it streaming. The one tornado that we got, the second one that it came, I was literally watching the feed. We were huddled in the bathroom, me, my husband, and my dog. And so we were watching the news station, and the news station has like the lights that go onto the street, and suddenly you see the lights going off because the tornado is coming. And then we lose reception and the power goes out. So power's out, phone's out, tornado is on the way.
Oh no.
So I'm like, yeah. It's like, my goodness. But anyway, I will take cover if we get a warning.
Make sure your phone's fully charged too.
Yeah, I need to do that because it's at 77%. But anyway, yeah, y'all can tell people what you do on your channel, what you read. I believe I should have done a good enough job putting all y'all's channels in the description. I'm checking now. Yeah, y'all are all there. So everybody's channel's down below. So if you're watching this and you made it to the end, I think that everybody's earned their subscription. So after 3 hours of entertaining you better go subscribe to everybody.
There you go.
Oh, but I guess Nell, you can go first.
I post weekly content. I didn't post today, but there's just a lot going on right now. But I do plan on posting next week. So the video that was supposed to go up today, I will edit this weekend so that it goes up next Friday. But Fridays at 12:30 every day. I mean, every week is when I post. It's mostly like wrap ups. Next week's video is actually going to be a TBR, which I don't normally do. I'm only really doing it because Princess talked me into it.
You gotta talk her into monster smut.
I talked her into reading American Gods, so that baby steps. So yeah, mostly like wrap ups, TBRs, vlogs, stuff like that. That's pretty much it. And then I hop onto Courtney's lives on Thursdays, which I'm sure she'll talk about.
I missed yesterday's. I can't remember what I was doing. I think I was watching the movie my husband got me for my birthday, and the first one didn't work, and then we got a second one and it was having the same problem where you get 7 minutes in and then it wants to start over and it just keeps looping the first 7 minutes. So then he had to like rip the CD or whatever, but then that had a sound delay issue. So then he was like, all right, play the regular one again, and somehow miraculously it worked. I have no idea. It was weird.
It's always an issue with technology.
Bane of my existence.
Yes.
Okay, so on my channel, I post twice a week, usually on a Monday and a Friday. I do the Friday classics. On Monday, it's generally a wrap-up, a TBR, book haul, something like that. But lately, I've been doing tag videos, and I also have a Discord that anybody can join. We have the Serialized Book Club, where we read big chunksters like this, like The Count of Monte Cristo, and everybody's obvious favourite, Anna Karenina. We also have a Discord members spin of the month, and so our Discord members get put on a wheel. We spin that on the 20th of each month, and then they pick the book that we're going to read the next month. That's about all that happens on my channel. Bit of this, bit of that. Oh, and I do sprintings every Friday at 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and that would be for the Northern Hemisphere Thursday evening.
And
do you have a live show?
Your spin winners.
Say
You
again?
were one of the spin winners.
Who?
You picked the book?
Oh no. I think Tatiana didn't she? No, who won it this year or this month? I know
This
it's the
month
silent patient.
was Chrissy from she's the moderator of the group, and Chatty from the Mad Chatterer was last month, and she picked which was March. So, and Flo was in January, which was
Okay.
Henrietta Lacks, and I spun up on February, and we read the Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams, which is an Australian author.
Do you have a live show for your books? Like to discuss the book for the month?
No, I haven't thought about it because it's only just been a new thing that we started this year. But it would be good to have a live show. So good thinking there, Courtney. Thanks for the info. I'm going to take that info.
There you go. I think on one of those days that you're sprinting, just say, hey, if you want to come on and discuss the book, So, but I'm going to try.
I sprint every Friday. So I'm already on live. Like yesterday, I was on for 8 hours because I was determined to finish that book. I was not bringing that book into my weekend.
That's how I do. I'm like, look, my husband's like, you're not getting paid. Why are you up so late? Like, I want to finish this. Especially when you just want to get it through it, and you don't really care about the book. You just want to get
But we'll see. At the moment, the challenge that I'm doing is as you know, most of you know, I'm reading through the long list of the Women's Prize for Fiction, and so I'm getting down to the books that I didn't really want to read. But to be true to the prize, I have to read them all. And one I'm reading right now is Glory by Noviolet Bulawayo, I think her name is. It was on the Booker Prize last year. I think it was on the International Booker Prize last year. And I'm listening to the audiobook, and the narrator is very passionate, so passionate that I feel like I'm being yelled at and that someone is over me going, you need to hear this now. Like, that's what I'm cringing away from it. And I'm like,
I was emotionally abused as a child. No, thank you.
I feel like my father is standing over me, and I'm like,
I would get nice water, and I'd be like, I'm not crying.
Is it a good plot at least?
No. It's like George Orwell. Is it George Orwell's Animal Farm?
Oh no. Okay, it's a wrap.
So it's like all the characters are animals, and it is telling the story and the things that happen around the fall of. And this is my own ignorance because I have put myself on a news ban because I was getting anxiety from just watching all the stuff around the globe. In 2017, in Zimbabwe, a president fell to a coup, and so it's centered around that. The only thing that I really like, and I'm sorry if anybody's a Trump supporter here, that the animal they chose to represent Trump was a baboon. In my opinion, spot on. But anyway, so it's revolved around that, and the narrator's really passionate while she's reading this story, so it feels like you're being berated while you're listening to it. I don't think I would get that same feeling if I was physically reading the book, but I've only got it on audio, so I'll see how I go.
Had from a library, I DNF'd it. But there was a mention of, there was one part where the guy was wearing a Trump mask and he had an orange toupee on. I was like, oh my. I'll be honest, I don't like any politicians.
I don't either, but
yeah, me neither.
He's a buffoon, that guy.
Oh my goodness.
I would have liked Animal Farm better. I read it in school if I didn't have to analyze it. As a story, I enjoyed it. As for analyzing and all the stuff it meant, I hated it.
Yeah. So it's set up the same. Apparently, it's set up. I've never read Animal Farm. My daughter has been on my case to read it for years, but I haven't read it. But everybody, like, I've seen reviews of this book because it was on the Booker Prize last year, and so not many people like it. A few of the big booktubers that I watch, Jen Campbell and KD someone, I can't think of his last name, but anyway, he didn't like it either. She didn't like it. She DNF'd it because she was reading the she was reading the long list for Booker Prize last year. I don't think it's won any awards. It's just been nominated because I think a lot of people would feel the same way of listening to it. Like, I've got the volume turned down low and it's still coming across really aggressive. But that's probably just because of my own experience as like from childhood trauma and stuff like that I'm having that response. But it's not, at the moment, I'm not finding it a compelling or great story either. Like, I get who the characters are, I get who the representation is. I'm a little bit lost with what's happening in Zimbabwe, because I just don't know the actual story behind it. I don't know what happened in that coup because I through my own ignorance of not watching the news. But it's not an easy story to keep track of because you've got dogs that I'm assuming are representing soldiers. You've got an old horse who was the prime minister, president, or whatever of Zimbabwe at the time, and then you've got a donkey, which is his wife, and then you've got all these other characters, all these other animals coming into it, and then there's a lot of aggression in the book as well, and a lot of it's my God-given right to be like this in it as well, which always grates on my nerves because no, I don't think so. And basically, because there is a lot of, from my understanding, from what I've read so far, there was a lot of oppression from this particular leader at the time, and I think he ruled Zimbabwe for about 40 or 50 years. And then he so many times he was like fake news has even come into it because he was reported to have died so many times and didn't die. And then in one part of the and this is just, I'm only a third of the way through it. And in one part of it, the author has written down, I've had my heart replaced, my kidneys replaced, my blood replaced, this replaced, this replaced, this replaced. So it's like he's had all of these things to just keep him alive. And that's, yeah. And it's so bizarre. But I don't think it's going to, like, I'm going to keep reading it, but I'm going to really struggle. And I have to have it finished by Monday.
People who have been said to have died who didn't, and also a person that was mentioned earlier in this chat, Nelson Mandela. I remember him having passed. I remember that. I remember that. So I'm like, yeah, it's like that's why it gets the name of the Mandela effect because so many people remember him like dying in prison. But apparently that did not happen. And I'm like, but I remember that. I think that was like before the internet was really a popular thing for people that were like a normal social class. Because I was definitely not a normal social class. I was a lower class. But maybe it's just like how the celebrity, you can type in just like any celebrity and there will be sites upon sites about them dying because people are just trying to get clicks.
Yes.
But I'm just like, my goodness. Information spread is interesting. It's like a game of telephone. Don't really know what to believe.
That's true. You gotta look up.
I often, my husband will say something. I'm like, and what was your news source this time? YouTube again?
Of course.
Or was it the toilet wall down at the local pub?
You got to go to like snoops.com and find out if it's real or not. Oh man. All right, Courtney, tell us about your channel.
Okay, I'm Courtney, channel Tangible Reads. I like to read like celebrity memoirs, particular ones. I love fantasy, sci-fi. I do like horror, although it's been quite a bit since I have read that. I mainly focus on fantasy and sci-fi. I'm particular to authors of color in any different minority, so I kind of focus on that. I do sprint twice a week. I do Tuesdays at 11 a.m. EST for the USA. And then I do Sprints with Friends with the lovely Nell and Miss Heather. And on Thursdays, 5:30-ish p.m. EST, USA. You know, I generally like to post on Fridays or Saturday mornings. And you know, some other stuff in between, but that's the main times that I normally focus. Just depends on what I got filmed. And I'm like Nicole, I dabble and dib in all those little tags out there. So those normally go up as well, probably on Tuesday. So I'm around the booktube community because, you know, I ain't got nothing else to do. So I'm around.
You're like the short tag queen. You're the only
Yes.
person I know who can do those tags like that. And
I believe in doing videos shorter the better. So I try to get as much as I can in the shortest time frame possible. That's me. Dip in and dip out. So if you like,
I still gotta do my deep dive
videos,
video on your channel.
say that again.
I said I still gotta do my deep dive video. I've made a thumbnail for February to do it in February. I made a thumbnail in January to do it in January. I made a thumbnail in March. I was like, when am I gonna do this video already? Oh my goodness. Anyway.
You have a lot of stuff on your plate, girlie.
I read too much.
That's the way. That's the same way. I'm slowing down some reading because I gotta review all this stuff. I'm like I'm reading a book now. I'm not even going to review on my channel. I'm just going to do just a written review and call it a day. So I'm going to be selective in what I actually present.
I haven't even posted any of my wrap ups for February. I recorded them today, but I haven't posted any of them yet. I'm so behind.
Girl, that's fine. I saw somebody do a video the other day. I think it was from, was it October or November?
October, November last year.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm like, I started listening to it. I'm like, hang on a second, I pressed on the wrong bit. And I'm like, oh no, it went up 5 minutes ago. No, that's the right one.
Hey, sometimes you know you take those videos. Some people are just late, but sometimes you have a video you forgot. Like I have a few videos that I taped that I found on, you know how you can schedule on YouTube. So I look and manage videos. I'm like, dang, I filmed this in like the summer. It was a shorts when I was doing those little nature shorts where I talked about a short story in the background. And I still have 3 of them I never even put out. And I'm like, do I want to put this out? Because I'm not doing that anymore. But I mean, I filmed them, so I'm a saving them. If I haven't posted and I need some content, it's already prepared. I just need to say public, so I'm gonna save them.
You can put it up next. You can put it up this summer.
Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna wait till the summertime. But you know, in probably a week that I don't have any content or something, and I need a video to feed the algorithm, I'm gonna just be like public, and then that video
has a different hairstyle in it.
There you go. I switch.
That's what happened to me this month. Like most of my videos for March, like the first couple ones that I did, was when I had taken my hair out. Mm-hmm. And then I think the last video that I posted was a video that I actually filmed in January and forgot. The read it or watch it video. I filmed that in January, edited it, and then forgot that I had it. So then I posted that. And then the video that's going to come out next is probably going to be back when my hair is sticking out.
Well, that's like me. I've gone from dark brown to grey to two-tone grey.
Yeah, I saw your brown the other day. Your hair was down. I was like, that's Nicole. I don't. Yeah, it was one of your Booker Prize videos. It was the next shot. I was like, when was this film?
It's all been filmed in the last couple of weeks. All the long list stuff. Basically, all I'm doing, and that's how I've been doing my videos because I'm reading so much. I just figure as soon as I finish the book, I just sit my camera there and I just talk about the book. It's fresh off my mind, and it's done and dusted. And now I'm just taking B-roll when I'm around out and about, and just putting it between the books.
That's the best way.
I tried to trick y'all all with that thumbnail I did where I made myself bald. In the thumbnail.
I didn't fall for it. I didn't fall for it, but I was thinking that maybe you didn't know. So that's why I didn't want to call you out. That's why I sent you an IG post instead of putting it on as a thing, because I was like, I don't want to disrespect her because she
Hey, my experiment was to see if anyone would fall for it.
I looked at
Not
it.
only that, but if the video would get more clicks simply because of the thumbnail, I'm gonna go look right now and see if over time it's gotten more views.
And you gotta do what you gotta do. It's a lot of videos out there. Feed that algorithm somehow.
Okay, so that one got 79 views.
Okay.
The video before it got 31 views. The video after it got 32 views. So it got like
Well, maybe
double.
work. There you go.
Just go bald in your thumbnail. It works. Oh my goodness. Oh,
Okay,
so
Miss
good.
Flossie.
You're up, Flo.
Okay, I have the grape jelly library, and I try to post 2 to 3 times a week. Unless I have my grandbaby, then I won't post at all. Because I work 40 hours, and
Oh,
it's
man.
hard to read the books and work and watch the baby and all that stuff. But I generally try to get it out there 2 to 3 times. I love to do book hauls. I do reviews. I do suggestions. I do a little bit of reading. If I have something that's interesting, then I'll read that. And I'm very sporadic. And I'm very eclectic in what I read. Although I have my favorites, which are memoirs and nonfiction, I don't strictly review those. I'm all over the board, very open-minded with my reading. So I try to reflect that in my channel to give everybody a taste of maybe what their next read should be. So that's what I kind of focus on, just getting people to read and maybe giving them suggestions if they don't know what book they should turn to next.
And I'm Heather, the channel that you were watching.
No.
But you might not know me if this is your first video. I did get a new subscriber today, so that might actually be a possibility. But
I lost you, but go ahead.
anyway, I read just about everything as well. I do sporadic posting. I don't really have a schedule. Sometimes I just go live randomly and I'll do like an 8-hour reading sprint. Sometimes we'll do actual reading. Sometimes I'll yap the whole time and lose my voice. That happens the one
Sometimes.
As far as my regularly scheduled content, I read Dead People Book Club, and we've kind of made it a thing now to be like the I guess the third like Friday of every month is pretty much how it's gone down, around 7 o'clock CST. And then every Saturday I do a podcast style video of the new releases that are coming out, that I think sound interesting that I want to talk about. That's pretty much it. I do tag videos, but I got a long list of them, and I'm very bad at staying up to date. But I'll get to them eventually. And that's all I got. Thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to go subscribe to all these lovely ladies down below. I've got their links. And that's it. And comment. If you got to the end, comment a 4-leaf clover or a rainbow for St. Patrick's Day. Or something I remarked. Bye.
Bye.